It's been exactly a month since the Foxes were last in action, and after a shorter than usual summer break, Leicester City's new season starts today. Birmingham City are the opposition for Brendan Rodgers and the Foxes, who will be wearing their brand new away kit, which we'll be revealing on this show in the build-up to kick-off. But before all of that, we're delighted to announce that Leicester City's record Premier League goalscorer has agreed a contract extension.
Season. The trophy goes to Leicester City.
And Jamie Vardy, the man who's made the long climb from non-league to the Premier League, shows he's at home in this kind of company.
It's 11. It's heaven for Jamie Vardy. Premier League champions 2016, the amazing Leicester City.
Vardy strikes a beautiful goal and he scores once again at the Hawthorns. And that is 100 goals for Jamie Vardy in a Leicester City shirt. Yet another chapter in his Leicester City fairy tale. Vardy has a ton.
Well, yes, quite the achievement, quite the CV for Jamie Vardy. So confirmation there. He has extended his Leicester City contract until 2023. Absolutely fantastic news for everyone involved at Leicester City. You're watching pre-season here on Leicester City, on LCFC TV, rather, watching Leicester City against Birmingham City in Leicester's first pre-season game of the summer. I'm Dan Bates. I've got Jerry Taggart alongside me on the sofa this afternoon. How you doing, Jerry? You've had a nice shortened break, haven't you, I'm sure?
I have indeed. I've had a couple of staycations in the off-season and I'm back round to go. So, yeah, it's great to be back.
Well, the big news there, obviously, we'll come on to the game in a minute, but the big news is Jamie Vardy's contract extension. As we saw, the list of his achievements with this football club, quite incredible.
Absolutely. I think it's a no-brainer for Brendan Rodgers to get this one over the line. I think when you look at Jamie over the years, his fitness levels, his game ratio is fantastic. And I think with age, I think, obviously with age, he is going to lose his pace slightly over the next 2 or 3 seasons. But as long as it just fades gently, his football brain will improve. And his all-round game will still improve up until the end of his contract. So, for me, it's a clever bit of piece of work from Brendan Rodgers.
When you look at the stats for Jamie Vardy, 129 goals in 309 appearances for the Foxes. You look, it's quite incredible from the story of where he came from and where he is now, the amount of goals he has scored for this football club.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. He is, at the end of the day, he's one of, Leicester City's greatest ever players. It's as simple as that. And, and he keeps going and he looks strong, he looks hungry. He's helping the younger players as well. And, at the end of the day, he's just won the Golden Boot. To cap it all off, a great career at Leicester City up until now, he's won the Golden Boot and fairly deserves a contract extension.
Yeah, we're just looking at some of his goals from last season as well, or the season just gone, and the sheer variety of the types of goals that he did score. It just sums up the type of player and the type of striker that he is. Yeah,
and it just shows that when he needs that pace, he's still got it. So obviously that is a vital component in Jamie Vardy's armoury, but again, when you watch the timing of his runs, the runs that he's actually making, that's where his football brain's taken over, not his legs. And that will improve over the next 2 to 3 seasons. So for me, it's a great bit of work, as I said. Jamie Vardy will improve, I've no doubt. I don't think he'll lose his pace that he's relied on more often in his earlier career. So for me, great piece of work.
And when you look at the season coming up as well for Jamie Vardy, obviously there's going to be European football here at King Power Stadium, so a chance for more games. Hopefully Leicester will go deep in that competition. So another chance this season to get even more goals. Do you think he'll be used cleverly by Brendan Rodgers, or is it? I know he's 33, but he doesn't seem to be showing any signs of slowing down. Yeah,
I think that's the key issue for Brendan and the football club as a whole is how do you get that support for Jamie Vardy. He can't play every game, we know that. He was rested last season for a time. He may carry around a couple of little niggly bits and bobs, in his legs, and so he'll need time to rest. But so it's important that, the people who are playing alongside Jamie step up to the plate. So it's going to be a big, big season for everybody, not just Jamie because he signed this new deal. I don't think he'll be used sparingly. I think, especially in the league, he will be, again, that focal point. When you're talking about the League Cup games and the early stages of, Europa League, then, that's where, Brendan Rodgers has to be very, very cute with his team selection.
It's not just Jamie Vardy that has signed contract extensions this week here at Leicester City. Midfielder Papi Mendy and defender and academy graduate Luke Thomas have signed new deals. Jerry, we'll start with the latter there. Luke Thomas, obviously the left back, we saw him come in and perform really well, didn't he? For the age that he is and the fire pot, if you like, that it is coming into the Premier League and particularly the pressure that was on Leicester at the end of last season. I suppose the only thing that was missing, whether, like you say, the pressurised situation he came into was a crowd. You're totally right. He was thrown in at the deep end, right at the back end of the season when there was a lot of pressure on getting results, and he carried himself very, very well indeed. Did not look out of place whatsoever when he came into the side. So again, vital that he put pen to paper because he could potentially be another big player for Leicester City in the years to come. How impressive is that from a young player to show that already levels of maturity that clearly he did? Because I think any young player making your debut or any player making your debut in the Premier League, no matter how old you are, is clearly a daunting thing. But he never showed that, not once. I
think the most crucial aspect of it is for Brendan Rodgers because he had to make that decision to put him in. And he's repaid that trust and faith by putting in the performances. So now that builds a trust with Brendan Rodgers. So Brendan Rodgers can go to Luke Thomas at any given time and say, right, bang, you're in the squad. In this phase, Leicester City are involved in 4 competitions next year. So they need a big squad because there's going to be a lot of travelling. There's going to be, players that are rested in between European games. There may be big Premier League games on the Sundays following a European campaign. So again, Brendan has to, plan that to the nth degree to make sure that the decisions he makes are right. So Leicester need a big squad, and with Mendy and Luke Thomas putting pen to paper, these are all pluses.
Just finally on Luke Thomas, it's another example of the brilliant academy here and the production line of recent years that's come through. You see Hamza Chowdhury, Ben Chilwell, Harvey Barnes in the first team, and now Luke Thomas signing this new deal as well. Again, underlines the quality there.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that's been going on for years and years. Leicester have a proud history of producing young talent, bringing them through to the first team, and that it's still snowballing. And doesn't look, as if it's going to, relent anytime soon. So, great credit to the guys in the academy. I know there's a lot of hard work that goes on there to make sure that they give the players the best opportunity to try and make it to the first team. And by watching the under-23 games, which I do on occasion, then you see that there is some genuine talent there.
Yep, congratulations then to Luke Thomas, Papi Mendy and Jamie Vardy for signing contract extensions here at Leicester City this week. We are, of course, on because it's Leicester's first pre-season game of 2020 against Birmingham City, and the Foxes will be wearing one of their 2 brand new away kits. Leicester City's brand new away kits for this season. This is the maroon away and the white away there. They'll be wearing the maroon one today against Birmingham City. Jerry, just having a look at them, they look brilliant, don't they?
Yeah, very good. Obviously, maroon, not a colour that you would associate with Leicester, but yeah, it's grown on me every time I look at it. And I suppose why not? We've had a pink away shirt. Why can't we have a maroon for a bit of change? So yeah, well done to whoever designed that.
Well, the maroon kit is available online to pre-order. The white one is available now to buy in-store and online. There's an offer if you buy both the maroon and the white shirt together, you get 10% off one of those shirts. You buy the home shirt at the same time, you get 15% off a second shirt. And one more offer as well, you get 25% off shorts and socks when you buy them with the shirts. And that's applicable to both of those kits as well. So that's the maroon away and the white away. So quick reminder, the maroon kit is available online to pre-order and the white one is available now to buy in-store and online. So do make sure you head on to LCFC.com or have a look at the fan store there. There is a competition to win a couple of these signed shirts. So Jamie Vardy will be signing both this maroon shirt and the white one as well. So a chance to win a Jamie Vardy signed shirt is a brilliant competition. All you need to do is answer this question. Now, Wilfred Ndidi scored Leicester City's first away goal last season. Now, what colour were the Foxes wearing that day? You need to email your answer to competition@lcfc.co.uk and you can win a chance to, and you will be in with a chance to win a signed kit by Jamie Vardy. Jerry Taggart, I'm sure, knows the answer to that question. He's not going to tell you out there because it would ruin the competition. So do make sure you get your email into competition@lcfc.co.uk. We'll be revealing the winner as well at the end of the show, so do make sure you get those answers in during the game this afternoon. Well, as we mentioned, Leicester in action against Birmingham City today at Birmingham City's training ground. And Mark Albrighton, of course, the ex-Aston Villa man, has been speaking about his excitement returning to pre-season action.
Yeah, different. Not much time off, but that means that pre-season there's a lot less time before the first game. So we're getting into the games now, and the running's been tough this last week, so we're looking forward to playing more football.
How do you approach these first few pre-season games? Are they much different to what you normally would do?
I think from our point of view, it's just get through and get the minutes in. Obviously, you want to win the game. You go into any game wanting to win, but the most important thing in these is to get minutes into your legs, into your body, and we've done the running, we've got the base, but it's just a matter of getting on a pitch and finding your angles and getting back used to it.
How do you think it'll be?
It'd be tough. The first few are always tough. No matter who the opposition are, the first couple of pre-season games are always the toughest. So we're looking forward to it. Like I say, we're just looking forward to getting a football at our feet and playing again.
Mark Albrighton there speaking to LCFC TV ahead of this afternoon's first pre-season game of 2020. Jerry, you just heard his excitement there of just getting a ball back at his feet, basically. Is that what it's like as players? Obviously, you were there for many pre-seasons, weren't you? I'm sure at the beginning it's pretty tough fitness-wise, but once you finally get to that first game, what is that like?
Yeah, I think so. I think, obviously things are slightly changed, as Mark has mentioned there. It's been a more condensed pre-season, which means there would have been a lot more planning would have had to go into the types of training they would have done in the lead up to this, probably a bit more intensive, I would say. And so, yeah, it's a break from the new normal, let's call it, to get actually out on the pitch and start playing football. Even though they would have done that, obviously, in their training sessions, I think the majority of the plan was how do you get from point A to point B in that such a small space of time, which is very, very difficult. But everyone's in the same boat, and now they're back playing football. So that's the bonus. So Brendan will get a better outlook on things after he's seen the players today. Playing a semi-competitive game, even though it's a friendly.
I think we all know now with Premier League footballers, when they do go away, they obviously have their fitness routines. They never let themselves go for a month and a half or whatever it might be. But because this has been a shorter gap and because they had a mini pre-season once lockdown finished and when the games were back. Do you think that it will have been an easier little short break and those first couple of weeks and these first games today will be easier?
I think even, with the couple of weeks that they did have off, they all would have been given heart monitors or stuff like that, and so the coaches would have been keeping track on base fitness levels. I think that's all you can expect when you're in the pre-season, is you keep up their base fitness level. You're right to say that, because they hadn't had so much time off, that a certain amount of fitness would remain in their legs. There's no doubt about that. And then with the added base fitness that they'd have been given to keep up to during the off-season, then hopefully that plan will kick into place, come these pre-season games, that it not is all lost. All that fitness that they had at the end of last season hasn't been all lost.
We'll be getting team news shortly when we hand over to the guys at Birmingham. Our commentary team is Chris Parrott and Matt Elliott there, so we'll get the teams, as I said, soon. But what do you think Brendan Rodgers will be thinking and hoping to learn in these first few games? Is it, as you've said, about just the fitness, or is it about getting a sense of certain players that might not have been in his plans? If they suddenly play well in pre-season games, they could be, or the other way around? Yeah,
there's all that. All that comes into play. Again, you've got to look at, there's 3 pre-season games, and a lot of big decisions are going to be made between now and the last pre-season game, and so the players have to be mindful of that if they're going to give themselves any chance of breaking into the squad, or they're going to impress the manager and the coaching staff, then they have to start this game like they would any other. It's as simple as that. Yeah,
we're just seeing some shots that are coming through from us now. Obviously, there's the maroon kit, the shots and the socks that we can see at the moment. There's a lot of younger players, of course, there, Jerry. You can see George Hurst there in the background. I know the camera now is trained on Damari Gray, but we've seen a number of the youngsters there. Josh Knight, we can see involved in that warm-up as well. Darnell Johnson we've seen. So it's a huge opportunity for these types of players in these games.
Absolutely, and I've just mentioned it before that Leicester need a big squad this season. Because of the competitions that they're going to be involved in, and so these young players have obviously, they've obviously impressed at development squad level for the last couple of seasons. Josh Knight being when he's been out on loan and come back and played well. So, is it now the time for those younger players to try and break in, to say like Luke Thomas has? So it's a very, very important season because of the amount of football that is going to surround this club this season, which is a lot.
Obviously, championship opposition. We saw the Foxes play a number of championship teams last season as well. What kind of opposition do you think they'll be in? Because, as you said, every club is in the same boat at the moment, the same situation with fitness and fixtures.
Yeah, it's always a scalp. You heard Mark saying you want to win every game. Now, they'll go there today to Birmingham, and Birmingham will, for their confidence levels, more than anything, they'll want to get one over on Leicester, even though it's, for want of a better word, a bit of a training game. But again, Brendan will give his players exactly what he wants to go out onto the pitch and try and achieve, the same as Birmingham. But definitely, when a championship plays a Premier League team, it's a bit of a scalp. I've been there myself as a player and as a coach, and it's always nice when you get one over on the bigger teams.
Well, a quick reminder then, these 2 shirts here, this white away and the maroon away, they are available in a competition to win signed Jamie Vardy versions of those. All you need to do is email competitions@lcfc.co.uk and answer the following question. Wilfred Ndidi scored Leicester City's first away goal last season. What colour were the Foxes wearing in that game there? So email that, as I said, to competitions@lcfc.co.uk. Competition, rather, with no S at the end, at lcfc.co.uk for your chance to win those signed Jamie Vardy shirts. Right, we're about 10 minutes away from kick-off now in Birmingham for Leicester City's first pre-season game of 2020. So I'll hand you now over to Chris Parrott and Matt Elliott via this short break.
Oh, hello. What's going on?
Not much. Just waiting for the football to get back to normal. How about you?
Yeah, me too. Really missing you guys. Could really do with a break though.
So when are you coming to see me?
Hopefully soon, but there's some work I've got to do first. Sawadee.
สวัสดีครับบาย
biết Sài Gòn.
We are an instinct that ignites action. We are a journey, taking one step more. And we are the heart that beats as one. We are proud to be more. De Montfort University, Leicester.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Birmingham City's training ground here as Leicester City's pre-season gets underway after the longest season ever and the shortest summer. Football is already back for the Foxes and pre-season begins here against championship opposition. The big Premier League kick-off is less than 3 weeks away, a few miles down the road here at West Brom, so it is an important afternoon ahead. Well, the kick-off time was due to be 1 o'clock. Might just be a slight delay, as you can see Brendan Rodgers and Captain Kasper Schmeichel speaking to the referee today, John Brooks. But we will be underway very shortly. I'll go through the two teams in a moment. Alongside myself, Chris Parrott, is Matt Elliott, the former Leicester City captain. It's not too long since that Manchester United match. Matt, it seems slightly strange we're already back in pre-season, but what are you hoping to see today?
That's a good question, actually, because, I mean, you don't quite know what to expect because it is uncharted territory. Again, isn't it? That phrase has come to the fore, but yeah, us commentating here on a pre-season game at a training ground, certainly I've never seen or been involved in that sort of situation before, and it's a different scenario for the players as well. You know, the games are going to be mixed up, and as are the teams. And you know, it's a different format, really. So I don't think you can be too expectant in terms of performance, really, whether it's individual or collective. It's just getting back in motion again, isn't it? Literally, you know, those terms that come out regularly at this stage of the season, but albeit ordinarily a different time of year. But yes, it's a bizarre feel about things, but the players will try and adapt as well as possible. At the end of the day, it's a game of football against good quality opposition on a football pitch, and whatever the surroundings, decent as they are, you know, the Birmingham City's training ground and the pitch is superb, as you would expect. But yeah, listen, it hasn't got a real pre-season atmosphere, you know, for obvious reasons, but they've got to apply themselves as well as possible, because the season is looming pretty close, isn't it, already? And you talk about the short summer in terms of length, but also in terms of weather conditions, because it's breezy and blowy here, despite you having your shades on, which is slightly a bizarre look, with a padded hoodie on to match.
You were not supposed to say that.
Preparing for all conditions, Chris.
Quite right, quite right.
You're looking good on it as well, mate.
Well, here is the Leicester City team, and it's a strong starting 11. They're going to make a lot of changes at half-time and then on 60 minutes as well, but 7 of this 11 are first-team regulars, and a few impressive youngsters to keep an eye on as well, including young Sidney Tavares in central midfield, the young Portuguese player, and George Hurst leads the line after those first-team appearances at the end of last season. Kasper Schmeichel will captain this 11 in the first half for Brendan Rodgers. Well, for Birmingham, it's an even younger side, including their under-23 goalkeeper Zach Geacock in goal. Some first-team appearance in the form of Maxime Collin, Steve Seddon and Harley Dean. Aitor Karanka is, of course, the new manager at Birmingham City, took over in July, so he's having a look at some of his squad as well as some of his first-team players. They will also make a lot of changes at half-time. Oh, my sunglasses are on because the sun is out, and it is summer after all, despite the fact it being at the end of August. But for some of these youngsters that we're seeing now with the new kit on, Matt Elliott, these are really important times, aren't they? This is the opportunity to stake a claim to Brendan Rodgers as he's watching on.
There's always an opportunity to catch his eye, isn't it, for sure. I mean, Brendan will have, even at this stage of the season, you know, he'll have nailed on members of the squad, tried and tested, isn't it? And some are on the periphery in terms of his mind. You know, does he want them to stay at the club? I mean, I'm thinking of the likes of Damari Gray. I mean, what a talent he is. I think Brendan Rodgers is probably still unsure, because there's been interest, supposed rumours regarding Tottenham over a period of time and presently. So yeah, there's all sorts of situations to consider, aren't there? You know, young players coming through, as you say, George Hurst. You know, Jamie Vardy just signed his new contract. Great news for Leicester City supporters. George Hurst got a little glimpse in the back end of last season, which obviously wasn't so long ago. But you know, could he possibly forge his way into Brendan Rodgers' thinking in terms of another option at different times? So, you know, just a couple of individual cases that Brendan will be considering.
Well, Leicester's pre-season is underway. They're not in blue and white today. It's the changed purple strip, which we'll be seeing in the Premier League in the not too distant future. And the opening exchanges has seen a free kick, and also Kasper Schmeichel won the toss and turned the teams around. So the tactics from last season have carried on, as Harvey Barnes gets an early one in the air, which even he can't jump for. And Maxime Collin, the Frenchman, is going to take this throw. Not so long ago when Leicester played Birmingham in the FA Cup, was it? Just before lockdown, that 1-0 win at King Power Stadium. A very, very different feel here at the Birmingham training ground and the southern edge of Birmingham. Throwing goes the way of Leicester City here, and first notable touch for Kanya Lechabella, who's going to play at left back today. Don't often see number 10s at left back, but it is pre-season.
Well, he's adaptable, that's for sure. A good job too, Kanya, because I've come across him in my days in the academy a few moons ago now, and he was more of a certainly a midfielder, whether it be a holding role or in an advanced position. I've never seen him play at left back, but it'll be a little test for him, one that I'm sure he's up to. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's a couple of injuries at the moment in terms of in their left back position, but he'll be looking to do a job, Will Kenya. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on. You mentioned the kit, Chris. I'm liking it, aren't you? Yeah, I think it looks very smart.
I don't say anything else about fashion after you've already commented on the look that I've got on the gantry here, but it's very nice indeed as Kasper Schmeichel gets his first touch, and that terrific shirt sponsor this season as well in support of Thailand, and hoping to raise the profile of that country and tourism in that part of the world which has been so badly affected. Kasper Schmeichel, one of the true first teamers. We're yet to mention Damari Gray at the other end of the pitch. He knows this neck of the woods very, very well, of course, having come through at the Birmingham Academy here. Schmeichel again. Shaglar Sontju now, who we didn't see at the end of the last campaign after that red card at Bournemouth, but straight back into the fold. And it seems strange, it's only a year ago that he was stepping into Harry Maguire's shoes, and now you consider him absolutely as one of the first names on the team sheet, as George Hurst just runs out of play over there on the far side.
Yeah, that's right. Sontju's become a main figure, hasn't he, in Leicester's team, never mind defensive unit. I think without doubt he was missed towards the end of the season when he was sent off against Bournemouth after that disastrous defeat, as it turned out. But yeah, he's been hugely impressive, hasn't he? The way that he's acclimatised after a little bit of a rocky introduction. He's just come on leaps and bounds, hasn't he? He just exudes confidence in the way he struts around. I mean, now he's organising. It's good to see. He's venturing forward. He's ensuring that things are locked up back in his domain. He'll be looking to attack this ball aggressively.
And Yuri Tielemans is over the free kick in the summer sunshine. First real opportunity this for Leicester. Tielemans stumps it in. It's a very good header away by Kieften Belt. It's going to come back here to another of Leicester's youngsters today, Sidney Tavares, who was sitting next to the changing room, and Brendan Rodgers came up and gave him some words of encouragement. It's really nice to see that, and then called over Yuri Tielemans to make Tielemans say hello to Tavares. And I guess if you are a youngster like him, that must be a great moment when you have an international footballer and a manager like Brendan Rodgers giving you the confidence just before kick-off.
Yeah, that's right. It helps their introduction, doesn't it? And but you're assuming they would have had some time together on the training pitch to a level, but perhaps not enough to develop a partnership or understanding. But that's part of the pre-season process, isn't it? And as you say, it's a nice little touch. You want to make players feel as comfortable and welcome as possible, as early as possible. But ultimately, the only time you really settle in is when you start performing out there on the pitch. Whether it be in training, but then in reserved, pre-season games or development games. You need to go out there and produce the goods. And ultimately, if and when you get that opportunity to play at the first team, and you can see people settling in, they really feel part of the furniture. Not for a little while yet. It takes a little while to get to that situation.
Long ball forward, looking for the run of Adan George here. First bit of defending really for Josh Knight to do, back in Leicester colours, having been at Peterborough, down the road from the King Power last season. It's a fine looking ball. Damari Gray is onside here if he can keep it in. It's a windy old day. He's delivered a very nice cross towards Hurst and Barnes. It's a corner kick. It could have been Leicester's opening goal of this pre-season.
Beautiful counter-attack there, and good defending initially, as you mentioned, from Josh Knight. Read the flight of the ball well in difficult conditions. Ball ended up at Justin's feet. No nonsense. Some people say Leicester are a little bit over-structured at times, and there was a bit of variation. Good run, good sense of awareness from Damari Gray. Excellent weight on the pass. Beautiful cross from Damari Gray. Unfortunately, centre forwards couldn't keep pace with him, just behind.
Tielemans ball in and headed away. It's a very young front line for Birmingham today, who finished last campaign in wretched form. It cost the manager his job, but Aitor Karanka is now the man who has come to this part of the world and has been very well received by Blues supporters so far, the Spaniard. As Tielemans, who's in the Belgium squad for the upcoming international break. Footballers are going to be unbelievably busy over the next 12 months or so. Barnes and Leicester try to combine.
Yeah, a couple of times already, Harvey Barnes has tried to link up play with little give and goes, but both occasions, the pass has been a little bit heavy, or there's been a little bit of a misunderstanding with the intended recipient. But it's just one area. It's only a pre-season fixture, I know, but I think it was something. It was a feature of his game at times in the Premier League. You know, he's such an exciting talent and so much to offer. Just needs to tidy his game up a little bit, and then you are really looking at a hell of a player, never mind a prospect. Here he is on the ball, showing what he is capable of.
Yeah, he's got 3 Birmingham players for company, still got it. In the end, he's won a throw it, and that is the threat of Harvey Barnes. Right before your eyes, as throw-in is taken quickly. And Tavares has done well. Here is Mendy, one of those to sign a new contract this summer, along with the news today, if you missed it. James Maddison, of course, earlier this week, which I'm sure went down well, and Jamie Vardy today, after that Golden Boot winning season. He's going to be at the club for plenty of years to come, and Matt, those 2 players, along with young Luke Thomas as well. Leicester have tied down some real stars this summer so far.
Yeah, it's good news. I mean, there's a little bit of, in my view, needless concern about the lack of signings coming into the club at this moment in time, although obviously at the start of the season is not too far away. But Leicester are, historically pretty astute. They do their business in their own way. They're not going to be pressurised or forced into rushing any dealings. Leicester are slightly fortunate there as he played the ball across his own line of defence through the centre forward George's legs. It was about 10 yards away. But yeah, I think not necessarily a sigh of relief. I think it'll be supporters will be extremely pleased that they have in effect sewn up Jamie Vardy and James Maddison, probably in particular in terms of interest from other clubs. But Vardy's rightfully been rewarded for his commitment to the club, and listen, there's no guarantees in football these days, but you can reasonably confidently assume that Vardy and Maddison are going to be at the club for a good while yet, and that's got to be a good thing.
A lovely ball to Sonchu there from Gray. George Hurst then has his pocket picked by Harley Dean, who comes forward, one of Birmingham's first teamers, and he's produced a very good pass, but Sonchu showed his pace there and immediately turns and has a word with George Hurst, as Leicester again is not quite the nutmeg there, but he got himself out of trouble, and Yuri Tielemans can send Leicester on their way. Here is Gray. Chagla Sonchu there. It's interesting to note, he turned around and he was forceful in his opinion to George Hurst, as if to say, I don't care if this is a pre-season friendly, these are the standards that we have to abide by.
No, and rightly so. I think Brendan Rodgers won't be looking for anything other than exemplary application, really. And he mentioned about an opportunity for players to show something to the manager or to catch his eye. And in response, I said that the process can take a little while to receive that sort of confirmation, if you like, from the manager or coach. But at the same time, some players, have got that little bit about them.
Justin's ball in to Hurst, sets it back for Yuri Tielemans. And that is the best chance of this opening pre-season friendly so far, and Yuri Tielemans just falling back, is disappointed with himself as he blasts over.
Yeah, just going back quickly to that point, is some players do stand out at a young age because they have that confidence and arrogance in themselves. They don't need that settling-in period. They know they've got that inner belief to settle straight in to a first-team situation. And it's early days at the moment, but I would say that Sidney Tavares has settled in quite comfortably. He looks at home. in this level, but I say very early days. But yeah, nice play. I like that. George has a bit of a naughty tackle there.
Yeah, Yuri Tielemans is being hauled to his feet, but I'm not sure he'd be too happy with the challenge.
Well, you've got to get your timings in these pre-season games, haven't you? But yeah, a little bit. Yuri won't be too happy with that, although they have a little tap of the hands there to say, okay, no worries, no complaints. But I like that. When the ball's worked out wide, Damari Gray coming inside at this moment in time. James Justin trying to make the overlap. They've decided against it now. But George Hurst recognised a good centre-forward play, recognising Damari Gray was unlikely to get the ball into the middle of the box in an aerial sense. You can just tell by the approach of the winger sometimes how the ball's going to come in. He read the scripts and got himself in a position to set up Yuri Tielemans with the strike, although it went over the bar.
Here is Damari Gray, the former Birmingham man, and snapshot straight at Zach Cheacock in the Blues goal. He'll be looking to make an impression, I'm sure, Damari Gray, having arrived at King Power Stadium from Birmingham. One of those who, for his liking anyway, probably came off the bench more than he would have wanted last season. There's the opportunity here to stake an early claim in pre-season as Hurst gets another touch. And George Hurst is an interesting one, Matt, because we saw him at the end of the last campaign making his first Leicester starts, but he's not 18-19 anymore, so he's played plenty of football in Belgium with Leuven and Sheffield Wednesday before that, so it feels like a big period in his fledgling career, as Aldan George has it. In fact, it's Jeremy Bella on this near side. Now Colin.
Yeah, no, I think you're right with Hurst there. I mean, he's got a contest on his hands this afternoon, actually. Him and Harley Dean, both big, strong, robust, physical players. It's been quite a good match-up so far. It's Hurst now with an opportunity.
Into that right wing position. Tavares in the middle, goes short to Tielemans. A roll back here to James Justin, named today in the England under-21 squad. As I mentioned before the Premier League gets underway, a lot of the Leicester squad are going to be flying here, there and everywhere for the Nations League matches, the international fixtures. And the international break that I think I'm right in saying no Premier League manager ever wants in early September, but maybe particularly this season. But those games are important for those countries and now do count towards qualification for European Championships. So my understanding, certainly they were quite difficult to cancel even had they wanted to do so.
Well, yeah, it's going to be some effort to cram all the fixtures in this season, isn't it? I mean, already the planned mid-season break, I think, has been postponed, hasn't it? And there's a ball there across Birmingham there. Subjects picking the ball up inadvertently, but slightly fortunate to get away with that. But yeah, it's I don't know, but big players are going to have to be adaptable, and everyone's going to have to try and find a way through things, aren't they? The ramifications of the effects of last season spill over into this, don't they?
Certainly do, as Mendy clips out a lovely ball. It's a very blowy day, one of those days of playing football on the floor, as Damari Gray into Yuri Tielemans. Sunjic was in again to thwack it forward. Mendy battles away. Birmingham definitely happy to sit up and soak pressure here. It's probably a good test, that the amount of teams that did that against Leicester City last season in the end as well. So I know coaches often like to have different clubs who play different ways, don't they, in pre-season, so that everyone has an opportunity to try and break clubs down. Harvey Barnes couldn't there. Bit straight to Cheacock.
Yeah, decent idea. Execution wasn't what Barnes intended, as has been the case on a number of occasions already, but a bit of invention there from Damari Gray, like the run from out to in, and George Hurst has sort of pulled the centre halves, whether it was intentional or not, out of position. And there was space to run into, but difficult ball, especially downwind as well. It has to be exactly correct, not enough elevation on the ball. But one thing to look at, I mean, Leicester, how much you make of it or not, but I think it's an indication of how Brendan Rodgers, but we look to be going forward, playing the 4-3-3 system today. Birmingham on the counter here, well defended eventually by James Justin, but that's when Leicester looks most comfortable for me, Chris. Do you think last season, you know, with 4-3-3, 4-1-4-1, whichever way you want to interpret it, but, you know, with a lone striker and wide players either side, and that's the system they've adopted from the off today, and I think it's the one you'll see most regularly throughout the campaign.
They had those spells of 3 at the back last season, possibly due to personnel, given all of those who were out at the end of the campaign, as Birmingham's first corner was floated in, and Sonchu challenges well with Harley Dean. Centre-back on centre-back, and fortunately Turkey International came out on top. That would have been a chance otherwise.
But he did well, actually, because I think it was actually Rami there who was challenging with the number 5, but you expected it to be Dean, didn't you? Because he's normally up there challenging, but he lost the flight of the ball a little bit. The wind had played a factor in that, and so Sonchu realised he has to make a really strong challenge to stop a clear connection by the Birmingham defender, and did really well, actually. He got his, without fouling, got a lot of meat into the challenge, for want of a better phrase, and was able to clear eventually.
There is Tavares again, and just been promoted from the under-18s to the under-23s. It's a lovely looking ball from Damari Gray. Well, in the end it sliced Hurst and Justin in 2, but it almost picked out both of them.
Well, I was sat right behind the line of that, Chris, and it was, I think in terms of line of delivery, it was pretty much bang on. It was just the pace of it, wasn't it? Just needed a little bit more elevation. You don't want to float it in there, because obviously defenders have got time to come and head it clear, or goalkeepers claim. You've got to get that trajectory just about spot on, and Murray Gray wasn't far off on that occasion. Good intention, execution just minimally wrong.
A couple of very important assists at the end of last season, including that one at Arsenal, which salvaged a point. Damari Gray battling away once more as Justin leaves it.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it, how he affects his game, but without doubt he's a threat when he comes on. You know, at any stage of a game, from the bench, in particularly the very latter stages when people are tiring, he's got that pace, ability, energy, and invention about his game, but he can't seem to produce it when he plays from the off, and he must be as frustrated as anyone else. I don't know, is it about being able to sustain a lack of intensity throughout 90 minutes, or is it a mentality thing? I don't know. They'll have to work it out sooner rather than later.
Bell has done well here, but in the end 3 Leicester players snap at the heels, and Tavares can't pick that up. Mendy is there, mopping up. Played some vital minutes as well after the restart in the Premier League, and central midfield today with no Wilfred Ndidi in the squad. And another piece of defending for young Knight over there. And for the second time he's done well. He's conceded a corner, but Birmingham are tiptoeing their way into this first half after 20 minutes.
Yeah, he's done well eventually there, Josh Knight, as you say, and again I'm interested in seeing how his development comes along, but he probably felt he should have been in position that little bit earlier, as George knocked the ball out of with his first touch. He could have won the ball initially, perhaps nicked it off him, but decided not to make the challenge and ultimately conceded the corner. Just little bits like that can make a bit of a huge difference.
It's James Justin doing the defending on Charlie Lakin, who was at Stevenage last season. Here is big Harley Dean. Worked it cutely again. Justin, well, he's been beaten there. It's a good header away to Barnes. That's a fantastic pass to Damari Gray, who has the defenders exactly where he wants them. Damari Gray, beyond 1, beyond 2. It's a pretty cynical challenge. It might not be a yellow card today because it's a pre-season friendly. It definitely would have been if that was league football.
Yeah, again, sharp counter from Leicester. They defended their line well, or the 6-yard box very well. Good header from Josh Knight. Fell to Barnes, nice touch. Slick pass into Gray. Gray's looked probably as bright as anyone up to this point, hasn't he? He popped up on the left flank as well with that ball that very nearly found its mark, but on a few occasions he's outstripped Birmingham defence there. I think, I don't know, one minor criticism, possibly he could have played the ball out wide left, because there was every chance, and it proved to be the case, that even if he did escape the challenge initially of the Birmingham recovering defenders, they were going to pull him down and take him down because they were too exposed. And perhaps you could read that. Tillerman's looking to shoot from distance, but sometimes you can see that scenario. You think you have to work it out in a matter of an instant. And played that ball, Leicester might well have advanced on the counter rather than being pegged back with the professional foul, if you like.
Here is Barnes. Again, he's up against 2 or 3 blue and white shirts. It's going to be a Leicester ball. Midway point of this opening half. Leicester with a number of pre-season matches before the big one at West Brom in less than 2.5 weeks. A remarkably quick turnaround. As I mentioned, a lot of these players are going to be playing for their country at various age groups. So Brendan Rodgers is going to have to be pretty clever about who plays when in the pre-season friendlies. It must be a logistical nightmare in truth. Everyone's in the same boat, but...
yeah, it certainly is though, isn't it? I mean, with the amount of players that are involved in and around the squad, isn't it? Not just your primary first team squad, but you've got the development who are going to fill in, and you work out how much game time and how many players are going to get enough 90 minutes before the main kick-off against West Brom. And so many things to consider. You do literally need an army of backroom staff to support you.
Of course, a lot of the academy players out here today, their last game was in March, before that season was cancelled, as Soyuncu's header, well, forced Kasper Schmeichel into a lovely piece of basketball skill, really. That could have been a very dangerous moment.
Yeah, you see a little bit there about Soyuncu's mentality, don't you? I mean, there's different ways you can assess that. I mean, some would say, like, supreme confidence in his own ability, and at times I'm just a little bit worried about him in certain defensive situations, because he's got that natural inclination to try and play, and more often than not he gets himself out of trouble with the ability he's got. But yeah, I mean, it was a risky cushioned header. Let's say that, although I can see why he was tempted into it. Ultimately he's done it. Schmeichel's backed him up with a nifty bit of handwork there, but it just looked like there wasn't certainty in his actions there, and again, it's pre-season and a little bit of a relaxed mentality about it, maybe to an extent, but it's just something that I still feel is lurking a tiny bit in Soyuncu's game, impressive as he's been.
And here he is on the ball again. It's a very blowy day. You might have heard that in the effects, Mike, or it's gusting about in this part of the world as George Hurst is forced wide, cycles the ball well. Now Lesha Bella. Back to Hurst. Harvey Barnes involved, now Tavares. That's a free kick right on the edge of the box, and this is definitely within shooting range.
Yeah, nice play there. Initially by Hurst, nice and strong and direct, and just keeping the ball in advanced areas for Leicester, and they sort of reworked it. But Barnes, on this occasion, it was preset in his mind. The little ball around the corner to Tavares was intentional. He knew he was there, and it was clever play. It drew the attention of the Birmingham midfield. A little outside the foot, round the corner, give and go. But Tavares was fouled, and Mario Gray's got an opportunity here. Fancy his chances here with his dipping, swerving effort from these sort of situations.
He shooed Yuri Tielemans away. Damari Gray against his former club here. Oh, it's clipped the top of the wall. We were right behind that, and he's got his hands on his head, because that goes over the wall. It may well have gone in for 1-0.
Yeah, possibly. I think he knows he's on the opposite side to Brendan Rodgers there, and if he gives it the old frustrated reaction, then perhaps Brendan will think it's closer than it was in reality. But you can't get up and over that wall, haven't you?
Tielemans ball in. Soyuncu's there. Ball is ping-balling around, and in the end, Knights gets it back to Leshabella. Good spell this from Leicester. Another header away. Good pressure on the Birmingham defence though as we approach the 30-minute mark. 90-minute match. There were some thoughts that it might go to 120 minutes, but things are pretty fluid in pre-season. It's going to be 2 halves of 45 minutes today.
Yeah, I think overall it's I understand the reasons for it because of the amount of numbers that are here today in terms of players, but you want to get when the game starts stopping and starting like that, the benefits become reduced as well, don't they? If you change, I don't know, say you play half hour and then even 390s, you play half hour and then another 15, then there's another change, there's a stop in the flow of the game, and long ball over the top, but Leicester pretty much in control. I think George, it was over eager there to break the line, and Josh Knight and Sanchu working well together. But yeah, for me, it's best to keep the flow of the game. When you see, if you're going to make changes, do it at the break, pretty much. And all games serve their benefits, don't they, at this stage of the season? But when you see an entire, say, 10 outfield players coming on in a game, that's the end of the occasion, pretty much, isn't it? Then it is literally just a bit of a process.
Yuri Tielemans was fouled there. Crunching challenge on him. He's back to his feet. Another opportunity here for Knight and Sanchu to go forward, and given Yuri Tielemans' quality in this type of position, it's a promising moment this for Leicester City as they chase their first goal in this pre-season. Tielemans poised. It's a good ball. It's a very good piece of goalkeeping. Strong one-handed punch. Puts it out of play.
Yeah, it's not very well there. It was good delivery, wasn't it, from Tielemans? Right in the danger zone. Keeper's got a decision to make. Is he going to trust his defenders, or is he going to take control himself? And he did the latter, and he did it very impressively. He's talked very well throughout this game as well. That's another thing, the sort of benefit you see from being at a training ground situation. You can hear what the players are talking about, whether they're giving information at all, or how good or bad it is. Goalkeepers, as usual, a bit one of the loudest on the pitch.
I don't know if you saw a clip from one of Liverpool's games when it's fair to say that James Milner was not especially happy with a pass that he did not receive. It's one of the bad things about being at the training ground potentially, but it did show the passion that the players have, even in the pre-season friendly, as Tielemans picks it up here. Justin was on the move, so was Damari Gray, and he knew that. It's a good piece of defending over there. But all three of those Leicester players were absolutely on the same wavelength when Yuri Tielemans picked that up.
Yeah, it was good to have different options, isn't it? And I think that's something that Brendan Rodgers is trying to instill into his players, because he's obviously set them up, and they've practiced repeatedly on the training pitch of having a structure. You can see it, from pretty much the off at the start of last season, and when it clicked at times, it was beautiful to watch, wasn't it? And I think maybe it's a little bit over expectant for that style of play to work all the time, and as we saw, it wasn't always the case. Teams go up against it and they try and counter it, or sometimes it's not flowing properly, but you try and pick out the weaknesses that oppositions have, don't you? And excuse me, sorry, and you have the pre-match analysis, etc., or even if it's in-game adjustments, because you'll see here Birmingham are quite resolute. They're just sitting back quite solidly, similar to that cup tie of last season. They're dogged, they're making it hard for Leicester, and eventually how are they going to break them down? And that switch to the right-hand side has been utilised on a number of occasions.
Harvey Barnes there, giving away the free kick on Birmingham City's right-sided midfielder, Charlie Lakin. One of those who is a youngster but has got first-team experience. Harvey Barnes, of course, who went out on loan at West Brom. I'm sure he'll be looking forward to that first game of the season at the Hawthorns. I'm sure Jamie Vardy will as well, given that goal he scored there.
Scored a few there.
And he has scored a few there. I just wonder, even in an empty stadium, if he might do one of those celebrations as well that he likes at the Hawthorns. If you missed the news earlier, Jamie Vardy has signed a new deal today, along with James Maddison earlier this week, and young Thomas, and also Mendy as well. Here is James Justin, and it's Damari Gray over there on the far side. Now Tielemans, just for once, has touched them down, and Ivan Sunic can step in, blast it forward into the wind. Does hold up. Knight wins the header. Tavares swoops in. Here is Barnes, another chance to run at his man. Tielemans was the option. He's gone to the penalty area on a number of occasions in this opening 32 minutes.
Yeah, he has, and it's an element of his game that we haven't seen enough of after a sort of initial flurry when he joined the club, but it was in far too early there. He was static when the ball was put in by Barnes.
Barnes with another ball in towards Damari Gray. Now Justin back to Yuri Tielemans, just half a yard, and that ball has cannoned into Vairami. That might have taken the wind out of his sails. It's a corner kick.
Yeah, that was a decent opportunity, wasn't it, to get a good strike at goal, and looked to be on target. It was travelling. He did well to get his body behind that, but yeah, Leicester for majority of the game, in control in terms of possession, more dominant side by some distance, but creating any real glaringly open opportunities, but applying the pressure, that's for sure.
Oh, Knight's there. Well, that might have been the clearest cut opportunity. It's going to be another corner. Josh Knight there must have thought he was about to put Leicester City 1-0 up. It was another sumptuous ball in from Yuri Tielemans.
But you feel sooner or later something's going to fall Leicester's way, don't you? Whether they'll carve Birmingham open or not, it doesn't matter.
Here is another ball in, and again it's a free header. And this time George Hurst heads over. 2 chances in the space of 60 seconds for Leicester.
So we'll be disappointed there. You talk about sumptuous deliveries, that was bang on the money, in and around the danger area at the far post. George Hurst made the run. He got himself up against a smaller opponent in a physical sense and in terms of height, and he'll be disappointed. I think once he'd sort of brushed him out the way, he had a clear enough header there, and just to guide it on target from that distance would have probably ended up in the back of the net by a miraculous save, but unfortunately couldn't keep it down.
That's a nice piece of skill over there from Adan George, who's been with Birmingham since 2015, and number 9, and he's shown some nice touches in this opening 35 minutes. To mention it, it's a young Birmingham side with some old experienced pros in defence. No sign of the likes of Lukas Jutkovic today, their top scorer last season. Justin's in there and clears emphatically. Birmingham haven't had too many opportunities really in Leicester's last third. Here is Steve Seddon into defeat of George. Again, Josh Knight and James Justin try and stop him. Damari Gray then cleverly wins a throw-in.
Yeah, again, training pitch environment. Kasper Schmeichel talking to his defenders there from a distance. Initially, assisting and ultimately acknowledging James Justin there. He's giving that little bit of advice that, in his view, the way ahead was to stand, don't dive in, don't make that challenge, don't be rash. James Justin probably made his own decision anyway, but it was just reinforcement from the experienced goalkeeper behind him. Helps him to make that decision. Just these little bits just help integrate players. Like Josh Knight there was a similar situation. Kasper Schmeichel, stand, don't make a challenge, don't risk it. And ultimately, the ball was conceded to Leicester and they're able to clear and they're back in possession. They're just constantly talking to people, Kasper Schmeichel, as you'll find the more experienced players do, and it's such an attribute to have, and the young players benefit from it enormously.
Hurst couldn't get on the end of that. Of course, Kasper Schmeichel's potentially going to be coming up against England in the international break. As George Hurst trots back. Just another ball over the top for him. Couldn't quite get beyond Harley Dean.
Yeah, he likes that running behind, doesn't he? They're still looking for it. Again, it's difficult. When it's downwind, it has to be, ideally, there's got to be a little bit of a curl on it, an elevation again, you know, that word that we used a few times, or it's got to be delivered from wide, diagonally. Offside there again. Leicester in control pretty much, don't you? Read the script. Just one word of in terms of encouragement, or you know, older players affecting younger players. It's good to to have that talking and that assistance behind you or in and around you. It's got to be delivered in the proper way, because as Kasper Schmeichel was in that case, because if you, it's a decent ball on the outside.
Yeah, George is onto it in a flash as well. Mendy and Sancho for company. You can hear Kasper Schmeichel saying no foul. There wasn't. There will be a Birmingham corner though.
Yeah, and again there was talking there from Schmeichel. He didn't make the foul, but ultimately conceded the corner. He was disappointed, was Kasper. Might have been able to shepherd him out and concede a throw in at the worst, but yeah, but that advice, that assistance, got to be delivered in the right manner, the right tone as well. You don't want to be making decisions for players, for them, because otherwise confusion comes in, and the players have got to be strong enough to make their own decisions ultimately.
Header down from Dean, straight at Kasper Schmeichel. He tried to get Damari Gray in and away, really. It's back with Dean.
Wrong option, really, I think, in that instance. I mean, on the counter and everything, yeah, it's good. I mean, the execution was wrong. That's another matter, but Damari was isolated there. Even if it did arrive at him, he had a long, long way to go and a lot of defenders to beat.
I do have a long throw specialist, Birmingham, and Bayrami is going to maybe employ that now. He does hurl it in. Dean is up. Head of Justin. Just a heavy touch there from Lakin, and Leicester might be able to counter. Harvey Barnes wants a free kick. He's not going to get one. George back into the box, and Justin turns it behind, and the protests start to John Brooks.
I don't think it was a foul myself. I think Harvey Barnes was on his heels a little bit there. The fullback's beating him to the ball. You've got to read that situation a little bit better. Tavares was trying to help Harvey out. It's Leicester conceding another corner. And Birmingham intermittently having little mini flurries in the danger area.
Danger from set pieces, and it was Bayrami who was up again. Leshabella does the sensible thing and launches that all the way through to the goalkeeper.
Yeah, well, most teams possess some sort of threat from set pieces, even if they're not particularly aggressive or physical. But you don't want to be conceding too many corners or balls into the box. They've looked relatively comfortable in terms of dealing with the balls over the top. From deep, the runs have been well marshalled by the two centre-halves in terms of the offside. So not too much room here for Lakin to turn.
Header down to Kasper Schmeichel. Just before that, you saw some of the Birmingham players who are going to be playing in the second half going through a rigorous warm-up on another pitch here at the training ground. And there is going to be a raft of changes after half-time, which we'll go through. Ahead of the second half, Leicester as well are going to make a number of alterations. Yuri Tielemans into Justin. Looks for Damari Gray again. Birmingham have had a nice spell. And Leicester grabbed the opening goal before the break. Tielemans again. It's a lovely ball. Damari Gray. Again, no way through, but intricate football on the right-hand side.
Yeah, it's good play. I mean, Brendan Rodgers would be delighted with that type of football. It was purposeful, it was precise as well, but it was intelligent as well. If the ball wasn't on to play forward, don't force it. But when the opportunity arose, the incision, was there to see from Tielemans, and Damari Gray should have done better with the cross, to be fair, because he had 2 or 3 options and couldn't find any of them.
Taken off Hurst's head then. will be Leicester ball. Tavares, who can be very happy with his opening 42 minutes. Portugal under-19 international. Stands on the ball there. Leicester and Tavares exchange a lovely pass, and here is Knight. I'm sure would have garnered a lot from that loan spell in senior football. Sonchu short to Tavares. And Leicester again. Harvey Barnes was on the move immediately. It's back to Sonchu.
It's difficult. Leicester had lots of possession. But it's difficult, you know, as we see time and time again, when teams get set up, you know, 2 banks of 4 or whatever it is, a 4 and a 5 and a lone striker dropping in, and you know, to break through in this situation, you know, however much movement or pulling out of position you attempt, runs in behind, you know, Leicester trying to probe and trying all different scenarios, but it's so difficult to get behind them.
That was brilliant from Harvey Barnes. And the ball with the outside of his right boot forces a corner, but just as you were saying, Matt Elliott, maybe a moment of magic needed to break through this stout Birmingham defence. Harvey Barnes almost provided it.
Well, that was a rare instant that really made me eat my words almost, and you know, but Harvey's going past a player or two. It doesn't happen that often, but Barnes certainly has that capability, for sure.
Well, everyone's crying for that. It's going to be a goal kick. Sonchu was probably the man who got the final touch as he was attacking that one.
It's such a fine balance, isn't it, you know, between what you want out of the game. I mean, ironically, Leicester are probably better off letting Birmingham, you know, find a little bit of a way into the game, you know, venturing forward, because they've had majority of possession, you know, in control for most of the game. They've got the upper hand, but they've looked most dangerous when they've broken sharply on the counter.
Flag is up here, by the way. Kasper Schmeichel made the save anyway. Akil Hassan has got most things right in this first half. There is Sonchu. By the way, now behind the goal that Leicester are attacking, the players who are going to be coming on at the break are going through a rigorous warm-up themselves, including the likes of Hamza Chowdhury, who is going to come on. A few other first-team players as well. Filip Benkovic is going to get a run out, having returned on loan, so stick around for the second half. It's going to be a much changed Leicester team, but important 45 minutes for those who come on, as Knight and Justin exchange passes, and here is Damari Gray. Leicester have looked most dangerous down the side they are attacking now, and they have won a late free kick, which means Yuri Tielemans is going to have yet another chance to swing in one of his vicious balls.
Yeah, and yeah, there've been good deliveries by Tielemans generally, and Birmingham have just about done enough to resist Leicester's advances, haven't they? But yeah, perhaps it's to that stage. I mean, he's got the wind behind him to an extent, so it helps with the wickedness of the delivery. Perhaps it's a little bit. Leicester's got something a little bit different up their sleeve. Bit of invention. There we go.
Oh, you called it. And Harvey Barnes almost provides the perfect finish. That's a very good save. And that is as close as Leicester have come. And it is the last kick of the first half.
Well, yeah, I called it, but not quite in that manner. But I think the intended recipient was Damari Gray. The miscontrol deceived Birmingham, and it ended up with Barnes. Good strike, good save by the keeper. He's kept alert. He's been pretty impressive, actually. And a few times he's been called upon. But yeah, the half-time whistle goes. There's some good work by Leicester out there, though. You know, in particular, individuals for me that stood out. Damari Gray was a feature regularly. He'd be disappointed not to create an assist or even a goal himself, but he, you know, was a real threat down that right-hand side, in tandem with James Justin, and Mendes has been very impressive. I think he looks sharp, looks strong, athletic, and fit, and he's another situation that we perhaps will discuss at a later date. We didn't know whether he was staying at the club or leaving or sticking around or what, but yeah, I thought he was hugely influential in that first half, and decent exercise all round.
Brendan Rodgers having a word with those who are about to come on, including Mark Albrighton, who you can see on your camera there. Harvey Barnes and Chaglar Soyuncu have had their first taste of pre-season action, and the second half will be coming up shortly. We'll be back during the half-time interval. The players are not heading back to the dressing room or anything, so it might be a quick turnaround, but at half-time here at Birmingham City's training ground, it is Leicester City 0, Birmingham City 0.
Oh, hello. What's going on?
Not much. Just waiting for the football to get back to normal. How about you?
Yeah, me too. Really missing you guys. Could really do with a break though.
So when are you coming to see me?
Hopefully soon, but there's some work I've got to do first. So Vardy.
สวัสดีครับบาย
biết Sài Gòn.
We are an instinct that ignites action. We are a journey, taking one step more. And we are the heart that beats as one. We are proud to be more. De Montfort University, Leicester.
Welcome back to Birmingham City's training ground. The sprinklers are on. We've had a bit of a soaking up here in the gantry, but it's 0-0 at half-time in Leicester City's first pre-season match. And you can see the coaching staff going through some instructions to Harvey Barnes, who is one of those who is going to stay on at least until the 60-minute mark. Important minutes for him with the match and the new season, as we've mentioned, so close. I'll have a look at a couple of opportunities from the first half. There weren't too many clear-cut chances, Matt Elliott. Leicester City with much more of the ball from Birmingham, but in terms of real saves from the Birmingham keeper, not too many. This was one from Yuri Tielemans, which he skied over.
Yeah, well, Leicester were a threat regularly down that right-hand side. I mentioned James Justin, Demarai Gray in particular. In this instance, George Hurst getting in on the act and setting up Tielemans, who's had a couple of strikes from distance. Left-footed. As we can see by his reaction there, he feels he should have done better, and he's not wrong. As should George Hurst on that instance as well. Yuri Tielemans again involved. We mentioned about his delivery, particularly from set pieces. On that right-hand side again, the wind behind, good pace on the delivery, and George Hurst shrugged his man off. Again, a look of frustration tells a story, doesn't it?
Well, this was one of Harvey Barnes' best moments. Lovely dribble, and a cross which led to a corner. But Harvey Barnes has certainly had some very bright moments in the West Midlands sunshine.
Yeah, it was a good run by Harvey. Great technique, rolling the ball one way and another, and ultimately getting past a man or two. But that doesn't happen too often, does it? Here's the one right at the end. Barnes are getting involved. And we mentioned about a little bit of individuality or creativity on the set piece, something alternative, and they produced that, and inadvertently through the miscontrol by Demarai Gray ended up with Barnes. But keeper Jacob was up to the task, as he has been whenever he's been called into action. But the chances there were few and far between, weren't they? And that's something that won't concern Brendan Rodgers too much at this stage of the season, of course, but down the line it's about creating and producing gilt-edged chances, isn't it? Where you can be more clinical, because Leicester come up against him with the way they play. Teams do get a chance to set their stall out, and get in defensive positions, and good players that Leicester have got. Even despite that fact, it's hard to break oppositions down, and got to find a variety of ways of creating chances for themselves, because if one way doesn't work, you need more than just a plan B. You need a C, D, and sometimes an E even.
Okay, we're almost back ready here. So we had a very quick turnaround of about 7 or 8 minutes. The referee spoke to us on the gantry and said he was expecting the full 15 minutes, so everyone has to be flexible anyway. And Leicester are going to get underway. The second half team, as you can see, includes Admiral Muskwe, who's about to kick things off. 22-year-old Zimbabwean. Taps it short to Yuri Tielemans, one of those who has stayed on. James Justin will pick out Mark Albrighton, who has the captain's armband. And as we know, he's a big Aston Villa fan, so even though it's a pre-season, I'm sure he would love to score against...
Yeah, he'd love to get on the phone and tell a few mates that he's created a goal or even scored a goal against blue-nosed rivals, wouldn't they?
Filip Benkovic, his first touch, and having arrived back from the Championship, big period for him. He'll, I'm sure, have dreams of being part of the first team set up at Leicester City this season, Matt.
Well, he needs to have that intention, for sure. Yeah, I mean, as does the vast majority of players who are out here today. You need to have that belief in yourself. But I mean, he came to the club, didn't he? Probably with more emphasis on him than Soyuncu initially. Yep. The news was about Benkovic, wasn't it? And what sort of a player he's going to be. And as are all players when they come to clubs for a sizable amount of money, they're trumped up, and you're told about all their attributes, and proof's in the pudding. And so far, he hasn't hasn't really been given too many opportunities to prove his worth, and there'll be reasons for that. But he's tall, elegant-looking centre half. He can play a little bit. Perhaps just needs to, I don't know, not fill out a little bit. I mean, there should be a little bit more aggressive maybe in that centre half position. But as much as anything, you've got to learn the positional sense and the tactical sense of that centre half role. But I mean, it's on paper, it's quite a pairing, isn't it? Benkovic and Soyuncu. Let's see what the reality brings.
Now, on paper, it is probably a stronger second half team. Kasper Schmeichel no longer in goal, Danny Ward, but in terms of first team experience, not just at Leicester but elsewhere, it's a stronger team right now as Hamza Chowdhury picks out Soyuncu.
Yeah, I think one thing that does concern me with two international or two differing centre halves, you know, whether one of them be English or not, or English speaking, you know, it's sometimes the communication aspect of it. Centre half as much as anywhere. It's important all over the pitch, but particularly in that area. You know, experienced it a few times myself, and just that quickness of not thought but interpretation can sometimes be an issue. So hopefully they've been working on that, and by all accounts it was a little bit of an issue initially for Solanchi, but I think he's improved in that department.
Our first test there, one of the Birmingham substitutes was herring forward as Musque's given something to chase there. And interestingly, as I mentioned, yeah, Leicester's development squad under 23 level having such a good season last campaign. They were in the title race with Chelsea. They had that terrific run in the EFL Trophy, and whilst the Premier League restarted after lockdown, academy football didn't. So the youngsters that you're seeing today haven't had a great amount of football over the last 5-6 months.
No, that's right. Easy to forget that fact, isn't it? You just naturally assume that anyone involved with the Premier League club at whatever level is going to be involved, and it's a big period for some of these players. I mean, Evan Musque there, who's been at the club again right through from the academy days. You know, he'd come through at the same year as Chowdhury, Barnes, a year behind Chilwell, and he'll see the advancements that they've made. He'll be wanting to make an impression. He's getting to that stage of his career. Here he is on the ball now. Regular goal scorer for Leicester at all the levels he's appeared at. Has been out on loan, and you know, to varying degrees of success. You know, it's sort of crunch time for him now. You know, how long does he stay in the development setup, or before he makes an impression or inroads into the first team squad, or does he look elsewhere?
Tiedeman's header on towards Barnes. Two of those who have stayed on. Benkovic's touch. Justin looking for Albrighton, who's very much in his right wing role today, having played at the end of last season as a left wing back. I know his versatility. James Justin most definitely the right back, and with Ricardo Pereira, some great shots from him on social media, working his way back to fitness after that horrible injury. But for now the right back berth looks to be James Justin's, but it'll be fantastic when Ricardo is back in a Leicester shirt, rampaging around. Justin with the aerial challenge there. Benkovic will leave it for the young England under-21 international. Hamza Chowdhury came short. Now Danny Ward. Sonchu, Birmingham maybe just pushing a little higher in this second half. That might leave a bit more space as Leschabella goes on a run. He might not mind that too much if Birmingham do venture a little further forward.
Exactly. If they get a little bit more braver, a little bit more ambitious, I think it will suit Leicester City. I mean, you know, obviously they would mean that they've got more of a threat to deal with, but I'd like to think they're capable of that. It leaves more opportunities for them in advanced areas to expose Birmingham. But again, this is all part of sort of learning how to manage games, really, because they're going to come up against some teams that come at them, some teams that they just want to sit back and hold on to a point, and obviously there are a fair few teams in the Premier League who will try and do to Leicester City what they're doing to Birmingham this afternoon, you know, and that's control the game.
Here is Dan Crowley, one of those who's come on, played a lot of football in the Dutch Eredivisie, the former Arsenal youngster. Ball's hammered away. Good to see Dewsbury Hall back in Leicester colours. Had a very good spell at Blackpool before his season was curtailed, but James Justin doesn't elect to go to the Leicester's under-23 skipper, wearing 32 today. Minutes on the pitch for him as it's a fine ball to Albrighton into Dewsbury Hall. Leicester's best moment in the second half. Albrighton, trademark cross in, beats everybody.
Yeah, it was a good ball initially from Sonchu. He's been, yes, I mentioned, you know, Damari Gray, Justin and Mendy at half-time. I think Sonchu probably has to go into that bracket as well. You know, it's been a stroll for him pretty much.
Well, there's that ball you were talking about. That was his weaker left foot as well.
Yeah, exactly, left footed as well. I mean, is that a sign of his development? Because he plays on that left-hand side, and I know Brendan Rodgers has switched it on occasion, isn't he? Because he felt Evans was slightly more comfortable, and then switched it back quite quickly, didn't he? You know, I'm not sure what the thought process was in that. But Sanchez looked a little bit susceptible with clearances with his left foot on occasion.
Here is Tielemans, looks for Dewsbury. Oh! Emphatic! Well, it's not taken him long to make a mark in pre-season. Leicester's first goal is scored by Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. Fine finish, 1-0.
Well, there was no messing about there, was there? Touch, bang, hits it, back of the net. Thank you very much. But yeah, when we talk about Leicester's dominance, that's been the case in the second half, and Birmingham, I wouldn't say they were trying to advance too ambitiously, just opened up in the middle of the park there, didn't it? You know, between defence and midfield, but good surging forward run from Tielemans again. It's been a feature of his game today more than it has been of late, and Leicester getting the reward. And Dewsbury Hall equally timed his run well. They're both aware of where their teammates were, and excellent play, and nothing less than you'd say the Leicester deserved. But what a neat finish, wasn't it, Dewsbury Hall? We were just talking about him with his lost possession here, though.
He has dangerous moment. This is Birmingham look for an instant reply. That's a very good piece of defending. We were right behind that, and when that left Jaden Reed's right boot, it looked like it was heading in.
Yeah, well, I suppose, you know, from a coach's point of view, you'd be looking at Dewsbury Hall saying, well done. Okay, but that's something that you've got to develop there, because perhaps he's overconfident. You know, he's feeling good about himself. He's tucked away a beautiful goal, and then he's lost possession there and nearly threw away the advantage, because that could have gone literally anywhere.
Benkovic it was with the block, as Sonchu then gets a toe on that. This will be interesting now in terms of Birmingham's tactics. I know it's only pre-season, but maybe they come out a little bit.
Yeah, we think the natural response is to try and get themselves back on an even keel in the game. You know, at the end of the day, they're competitive professionals. It depends. Does the manager want them to just continue to play a certain way? I think you've got to try and combine one with the other, haven't you? You know, there's no point practicing a structured game. You know, if you're losing it, you've got to react to eventualities, and I'm sure they'll try and do that.
He hasn't had long, Aitor Karanka, with his new group. They've made a couple of signings so far, including George Friend, who he had at Middlesbrough, but the championship season is hurtling towards us as well, and they were pretty abject for the last 10-15 games. It almost cost them. They almost got relegated, but Karanka will hope for a lot better this campaign at St Andrews, where they'll be sharing with Coventry again. Coventry are Leicester's next opponents at Loughborough University at the weekend. You can watch that game right here as well. Samza Chowdhury has helped that out of play. Christian Pedersen, one of their first teamers, the Dane, will take this throw-in. Benkovic battling away. Yuri Tielemans, who is going to last until the 60-minute mark, by the way, when there's going to be a few more changes. A few more of Leicester's under 23 squad from last campaign are coming on. Benkovic again wins the header. Albrighton is sniffing around, and he's got the ball here. Musque's in the middle. It was a very fine cross and a good piece of defending as well.
Yeah, it was a good ball, wasn't it? Tight angle, squeezed it across there. Albrighton wrapped his foot round it, as he's looking to do again.
Yeah, Albrighton does cross it in. Musque's there. Again, it was Roberts who got it away, but Birmingham are being put under an enormous amount of pressure here by the Foxes in the second half.
Yeah, well, it was good defending on a couple of occasions by Roberts, but Musque as well, getting himself in the right areas. You could tell that Albrighton, similar to George Hurst in the first half, wasn't going to be able to dink that ball to the far post, for instance. It was at best it was going to make was a near post, and he got himself across. Defender had to lunge at full stretch to keep him at bay, and you know, I like to see that. It's good awareness from a relatively young striker. You can see why he gets himself goals, and you know, I think that's a big thing for him. You know, he scored at all levels. Can he continue to do that as he elevates his way through?
Pedersen was picked out beautifully there by the goalkeeper. The pass was on, straight to the feet of Soyuncu, who on his right foot this time goes back to Danny Ward.
Going back to Dewsbury Hall quickly. Chris, I was under the impression that Blackpool were trying to keep him permanently, weren't they, at one stage, as far as I'm aware, and I wasn't sure quite how that was developing. It's nice to see him back in the fray for Leicester, because I think one thing going on loan, but to depart permanently would have been a bit of a loss, I think, for Leicester, quite honestly.
Did get some first team minutes, didn't he? And he'll be hoping for a few more. It's going to be a busy season.
Yeah, well, again, he's a player who's come through from the academy, I think, the year below Admiral and Hamza and Harvey. Again, in my involvement at Leicester City, and even then, I mean, he was a young 13, 14-year-old boy. He was bang on with his attitude as well as his technique. And he's developed physically as well now, and giving himself a real chance.
Captain in the academy as well, and I think you can see those leadership qualities. He's only been on the pitch here for 15 minutes, but he's certainly not phased at all to be playing alongside Yuri Tielemans and Michael Brighton and Harvey Barnes.
No, not whatsoever, and constantly scanning, as they say, constantly having a look around him, weighing up the situation, you know, where the opposition player, where his colleagues are, where the space is, how can I receive this ball in an advantageous position, and good to see it on the old head on young shoulders.
And if he looks around this Leicester team at the moment, that pathway from the academy to the first team really is on show, with the likes of Chowdhury out there and Barnes out there. As Justin sensibly sees that one out of play. Birmingham, I mean, second best in this second period, yet to test Danny Ward, who's taken that a little too quickly, but the reason the referee's blown his whistle was because the 60-minute mark has basically been reached, and we are going to see a few more Leicester City changes. And as I mentioned, a chance here for Darnell Johnson and young one, Marcel Madavidua, who is only 17, is going to come on. There is Johnson, who's going to slip in at centre-back. Some new faces. Josh Eppier is going to come on and play on the right wing. Ethan Fitzhugh is going to come on and play at left back. So a very youthful Leicester team now for the last 30 minutes. And this near side as well, Vontae Daly-Campbell, who has been at Leicester for a few years now, the former Arsenal man. And he is blisteringly quick. Leicester's right back now on the pitch. So a chance for some of those players who performed so well last season, as I mentioned, in academy football. So maybe catch the eye of Brendan Rodgers and co. Here is Daly-Campbell. Back to Johnson, who got some football in Scotland. Now Benkovic. And Dewsbury Hall, who captained a number of his now first team teammates last season. What a pass that is. Daly-Campbell's quick, not quick enough, but Keenan Dewsbury Hall has had a very good 16 minutes.
Well, it looked perfectly weighted, didn't it, initially? I'm surprised that Daly-Campbell wasn't able to get there. I think just misread the flight and the bounce, maybe. But yeah, good awareness, good switch of play by Dewsbury Hall. You say there's a real development squad feel about Leicester's lineup right now. Is only Albright really of established first team experience. Obviously Hamza Chowdhury in there as well, and Benkovic fleetingly, but yeah, it's developed into that sort of game at the moment. But nevertheless, you know, a huge chance to impress and catch the eye and get into a flow of things, isn't it? And for one player in particular, for me, I mean, the players to look at the options are numerous at the moment, aren't they? But Josh Eppier coming on, you know, he's an exciting young prospect that's suffered severely with injury, back problems amongst others.
Here is Daly-Campbell towards Eppier. It's a good piece of defending. Hamza Chowdhury tries to win it back. Young Madavidua is there.
Yeah, just quickly with Josh, you know, wish him all the best. He's a lovely lad, again, academy graduate, but he has got something different about him. You know, he's not just your typical academy product. He's a strong, aggressive runner, an eye for goal, pacey, left-footed.
He's going to be an inverted winger, Leicester's number 9. You can see in your picture there, because he's playing on the right, or Brighton has shifted over to the left at the front 3.
Yeah, not his sort of natural position. He can play centrally, I think, more authentically, if you like. But these days, you know, you have to be able to be adaptable, don't you, across that front 3.
Well, Daly Campbell's going to need to use his pace here. Benkovic, in the end, used every inch of his frame to get that back to Ward.
Yeah, he certainly extended there, wasn't he? Yeah. Inspector Gadget, to say the least, wasn't it? And thought initially there's a little bit of a threat on there, but he's timed his challenge well.
Here come Birmingham into the penalty area with Crowley. Fitzhugh gets back, and good work from Ethan Fitzhugh. He's just 17, part of Leicester's under-18 set-up, really. He'll be looking to progress to the under-23s, but here he is in a first-team match, and he's given away a corner, but he responded well to initially giving the ball away, and it's going to be Crowley to take this set piece of Birmingham. Plenty of big boys forward, and it's towards one of those at the far post. It was Pedersen. Hoisted back into the box. Yet to test Danny Ward at all in this second period, really, as it's excellent work from Musquet, not just to win it, but then to win the free kick. And he might be a little frustrated that he was all back there, because he was about to run up the right wing.
Yeah, strong play, wasn't it? And just couldn't hold on to him there. Pedersen, as you say, grappling away, but Musgrave didn't want to just settle for the free kick, did he? He wanted more. He wanted to outstrip his opponent there. And a big physical presence, isn't he? And real handful.
That's a cute ball into Apia. Good challenge by Augustin Medina. Back with the goalkeeper. And G-Cock has played all the minutes so far. Birmingham don't have a sub-keeper on their bench, so he'll be playing the 90 unless something absolutely remarkable happens. Danny Ward there. Just had to be careful with the wind. Leicester are kicking into a... It's not a gale, but it's definitely a notable wind. It's just dropped as I was speaking there, but...
Well, yeah, it's threatened for an instant there to upset Danny Ward there as the ball just carried through, as the ball was cleared.
I saw you grimacing.
Yeah, I think Danny was relatively comfortable. He just had to backpedal pretty sharply.
Through the legs of Daly Campbell, but Leicester's young central midfielder Madavadir gets it. He's only played 7 minutes of under-18 football, Leicester's number 14. And yet here he is. He's clearly done enough to impress Brendan Rodgers and to win the promotion, if you like, to this travelling squad. And he was another who I saw Brendan speaking to before kick-off and introducing him to Yuri Tielemans as well, which I'm sure would have been a big confidence boost on that's a big day for a youngster like that, making their first team appearance, even if it's only a pre-season friendly at a training ground. He's out there with some high-class operators, and Leicester have defended that one well.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of the process, isn't it? He'd be absolutely delighted to be in the mix, even at this stage of the season, in this environment, in this type of game. But more, it's a little bit. You puff your chest out a bit. Go home, maybe tell your parents, don't you? I've been involved in first team training situations, in the first team environment now, in the pre-season games. You're saying it's all little steps up the ladder. You just got to make sure you keep stepping up them and don't take anything for granted.
Here is Benkovic, and the goal scorer Dewsbury Hall. Darnell Johnson. Look for that run of Epia, who is up against a big physical first teamer in this second half.
A fair old bump in there, didn't he?
Kasper Schmeichel, no rest for the wicked.
Kasper's on the warm down.
Off, but on the warm down or warm up, depends how vigorously he goes on that spin bike. But he'll had very little to do in that first half.
No, but you're just getting, you know, preparation and your recovery done as professionally as possible. Just warm down the muscles, never be too careful. Casper's certainly one of those who comes under the bracket of ultimate professional, doesn't he? You see it in his attitude, his application. And again, so today.
Here is Benkovic. I mentioned again, one of those who's got some big international matches coming up, because it's a final tournament year again now, having seen the European Championships postponed. But anyone who's playing senior football, as Brendan Rodgers turns away there, I think he'll be pretty happy with the opening 68 minutes. He's seen lots of his players now getting minutes under their belt, and of course he's seen a goal as too.
Yeah, as I said at the time, it's nothing less than Leicester deserve. The game, as tends to be the case, is sort of petering out a little bit with the multiple changes don't assist that from both sides. And you know, more often than not, that's how things develop. But how much are you looking out of from this game? Really, it's you know, your expectancy is it can only go so far, and I think by and large, Leicester players as a whole have acquitted themselves quite well, haven't they? You know, it's gone pretty much according to plan, how you would expect. Haven't been any major startling revelations or things that might scare you. Leicester have got back into their stride. They're playing the way that they're accustomed to. You know, and up to this point, they've managed the game pretty well, and some reasonable individual performances. So Brendan Rodgers can't ask for too much more, really, on the first outing.
It's still only Brendan Rodgers' second pre-season at Leicester City as well, even though he took over 18 months ago or so, in the middle of the season before last. These are definitely games that fans watch, though, and do make their initial thoughts on the season and on players as well. Yeah,
I think from a supporter's point of view, I would say it's just a little bit of a chance to see individuals that you don't see that regularly. You know, we haven't learned anything today from the regular first teamers that we didn't know already, really. But you could look at one or two. I mean, the main players that I mentioned were regular features in the first in the first team squad at very least, the first 45 minutes today. But you could look at, it's an opportunity for players to see the likes of Dewsbury Hall, who's on the ball now. He's got himself a goal, so he'll stand out for that reason alone. But he's marshalled the midfield well since he's come in there. There hasn't been too much in terms of incidents, though, has there, or opportunities? Well, in the first half, never mind this second half, Leicester got the goal. Other than that, the goalkeeper's hardly been tested at either end. It's all been pretty much as you would expect at this early stage of the season.
We haven't seen Birmingham change their tactics at all. We have seen a second goal, and it's Mark Albrighton. Well, he'll enjoy that, the boyhood Aston Villa fan. It's probably one of the most bizarre goals he's ever scored, but it is 2-0, and it's a nasty moment for young Zach G-Cook.
Mentioned the goalkeeper. I thought he's been quite impressive throughout, and goes and pulls a wicket like that. But we're talking about Mark Albrighton, Aston Villa supporter, scoring against the Villains' big rivals, whether it be on a training pitch, atmosphere in a pre-season fixture. He'll still enjoy that goal, whether by hook or by crook. Although he did well not to celebrate too heavily, didn't he?
He'll say that he pinged one into the top corner. That's exactly what he did.
Yeah, no stopping them. No stopping them.
It's 2-0 now, and it's no more than Leicester City deserve, in truth. Result is of secondary importance in pre-season matches, but they say about winning being a habit. Here is Dewsbury Hall, who got the opener. Now Darnell Johnson, and definitely I think Aitor Karanka is so in the infancy of his Birmingham managerial career. Maybe that is why the system hasn't changed as well. He wants everyone to know exactly how they are going to play in the Championship next season, or this season I should say.
Yeah, it was from Karanka's point of view, it's quite a difficult one, really, isn't it? Because you're going up against a team that, as you say, newly introduced, hasn't had a lot of time to change things, if that's what he wants to do. You'd assume he does, because what was going on before wasn't too successful. But then you're coming up against a team like Leicester, who are going to have the upper hand. I wouldn't say superior. It's a little bit disrespectful, maybe, but likely to have the upper hand against you. How do you approach it? Do you approach it with doing how you envisage playing against Championship teams week in, week out, or are you going to approach it how you would in an FA Cup fixture, as they did last season, sit back for the majority and hope to sort of nick something, possibly venturing forward?
Crowley delivers that in, and Darnell Johnson slices it behind. They'll need a new ball. It flies away, but it's a corner kick.
I'm going to say, Chris, sorry, but if you try and play against Leicester, how are you going to play against Championship teams? You risk exposing yourself. So how much are they learning today, really? I don't know. Minutes under your belt and all that, I suppose, at the very least.
Well, here comes the set piece. Now, they have threatened from this position. And it's whizzed in, headed away by Musquet. Maybe a chance now for Leicester to counter-attack with Dewsbury Hall. He's got men over on this near side. Help forward onto Epia. He's looking for Musquet. And Birmingham got bodies back there, and in the nick of time, stopped Leicester maybe being in for a third. Crowley.
Again, Leicester looking sharp on the break, as they have in both halves, really. In particular, it was Damari Gray, wasn't it, in the first half, and it's happened less so in second 45, but and they have had the opportunity. Very sprightly going forward. It looks like it's an intentional thing as well, as it should be, because
how about that for
defences are most exposed.
Nonchalance from Filip Benkovic.
He has that casual manner about his play, Chris, doesn't he? And, nothing wrong with that, as long as it's just your natural style, as long as you remain disciplined, as long as it doesn't develop into sloppiness.
Here is Darnell Johnson. Hasn't had too much defending to do. Hamza Chowdhury. Now to Benkovic again. Lost that forward towards Epia, who's operating down the middle. His first touch was fantastic. And he's still got it here, Epia. He's done ever so well. Couldn't quite pick out Madavidua. Daley Campbell. All Brighton back to Daley Campbell. It's opened up here. On the other side of the keeper, and it might have been 3.
That was good play, wasn't it? Leicester attacking down the left-hand channel and then creating danger on the right as well. Incessant, really, in that instance. With they weren't happy just to have one phase of attack. They wanted to maintain the pressure. Lovely ball from Benkovic over the top. Those straight balls into the channel, difficult to do, but he's clipped it with the alternative foot, really. A right-footed clip ball into that channel with a run over the top from Epia, I think it was, wasn't it, initially? The ball had to be bang on the money, and it was. Like to see that bit of creativity from the centre-halves.
What Birmingham going to do in the last, 14 minutes? Decent looking ball towards Reed, who did have that chance just after Dewsbury Hall scored. They can't keep that in play, the youngster. Just to mention again, as we have a replay of that, initially the thoughts were this game would be 120 minutes. I understand it's going to be 2 45-minute periods now, partly due to the amount of personnel that Birmingham have at their disposal at the moment, as Dewsbury Hall clips that forward looking for Albrighton. He's been typically energetic with such quality since coming on. Fitzhugh. For him and for Madavidua, 2 of the under-18 setup. He'll be lapping up every minute of this experience. Dewsbury Hall hits the deck. Referee says play on, so it'll be a Birmingham throw. Their openers against Brentford in a couple of weeks, team that lost the Championship playoff final. Brendan Rodgers shows his touch is still there. Plays it to Ethan Fitzhugh. It's wonderful from Brendan Rodgers' point of view. Be pretty pleased, I would guess, with the fact the intensity has remained whoever's been on the pitch, Matt. Sometimes you see when a new team comes on, the system might not change, but sometimes the energy levels do. But Leicester broadly have played exactly the same way, whoever's been on the pitch.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment, and it's pleasing to see. You know, it shows an appetite for the game, doesn't it? And an appetite to impress the manager. And you need to do that, though, don't you? As a you might expect that as.
Now Davidian's going to line up one here.
Well, he did well to create himself the opportunity. He got the shot a bit wrong and ended up for a throw-in, unfortunately. But he's slightly disappointed with himself there. But showed good adventure. But yeah, listen, you would expect the attitude to be good from the younger players. When they're getting this opportunity to. I mean, one thing's for sure: if they did let it slip at all. And we're a little bit lax with their application, they'd be getting a rocket. They would be let known about it for sure, because listen, you've got first-team players around you, and you need to know how to carry yourself in this environment. And Leicester players to a man have done that exceptionally well. I think they've taken everything that they've been told on board, and it's been pretty enjoyable watching, really. It hasn't been scintillating, there haven't been chances galore, but for this stage of the season, we mentioned, I've found myself quite enjoying it, watching it, and intrigued by all individuals and seeing how they're all developing.
Great challenge there on Albrighton. No hard feelings with it was Jaden Reed who bounced into him. Let's watch it again. Now that second goal from Mark Albrighton. Might just be a point that Brendan Rodgers will make at the full-time whistle as well, as he closed down the goalkeeper. You never know what's going to happen. They normally, if they do hit, you go wide, but sometimes they're flying to the top corner like they did with Albrighton. Hampshire Charity was under pressure there from Caelan Boyd-Muntz. Johnson told Eppie exactly where he wanted him to go. And here is Benkovic again. He's going to be hoping to push Sontju and Evans perhaps in the coming weeks and months. Albrighton. Fitzhugh. This real attack from the youngster. And the 17-year-old's on the pitch, and he's got the ball from Dewsbury Hall. And here's Chowdhury. Now Johnson, still a blue wall between Leicester and the goal in their new maroon strip. Fitzhugh there was barged into the back really by Augustine Medina. I'm sure Aita Karanka will be applauding the press, but it's just a little overzealous. It's led to Leicester having the ball here with Johnson in the end. So they search for a third. Had an unbeaten pre-season last campaign and started the new campaign fantastically well, as Musque's done superbly, and that is a penalty. Super run from the youngster, and Leicester have a chance to add to their 2-goal lead.
Yeah, good strength, good direct play. Leicester very patient as well, just keeping the ball, going left, coming back again across to the right-hand side, and showing great confidence, really. The way that they've maintained the.
Here is Musque, saved. That's a really good stop from Gicot, who's had a good day apart from the error for the second goal. And it won't be 3-0.
Yeah, disappointing there for Admiral Musque. He's done well to earn the penalty, really. There was a challenge 10 minutes or so ago where he was grappled and he didn't want to go down, because on that occasion he knew where he was on the pitch, and he thought, okay, listen, the challenge has been made. I'm entitled enough to go down to get the penalty, and that proved to be the case, but unfortunately he wasn't able to finish off the job, was he? Good save from the keeper, you have to say, although it wasn't anywhere near far enough in the corner. Well struck, but too near the keeper.
Hamza Chowdhury and Leicester have a free kick here. Here is Benkovic, who we've talked about how cultured he can be. Whilst you were speaking, Matt, he absolutely blasted one into the air, and you saw the wind take effect with it. Tricky conditions out there for the players. Epi is on the move again. Mitchell Roberts helps it back to his goalkeeper, who, as I mentioned, Birmingham was under 23 shot stopper, and he's played well. Lee Camp, who was Birmingham's #1 last season, has left the club, so Aitor Karanka is going to have a decision to make as to who plays in goal in the new season. I'd suggest that the non-Birmingham keeper today has certainly done his chances of being in and around the first team squad no harm at all.
Yeah, I think he's done well. Other than the Albrighton goal, of course. You know, okay, you can rule that out, but it's something that sort of lurks in the back of your mind, I suppose, as a manager or a head coach. But generally, he's been quite impressive.
There's Hamza Chowdhury. Birmingham, for once, have pressed Leicester here. Try and stop them having the easy ball. Leicester have shown their class to play themselves out of trouble. Now it goes forward towards Musquet, who, in fact, is Epi, I should say.
Yeah, switch roles they have, and they have the capability to do so. But yeah, disappointing for Abel there, because he's worked hard, and again, know him. He's a real honest lad, and he's been trying to get his opportunities and that step higher, shall we say, and not that it's the end of the world, missing a penalty, but it boosts the confidence, doesn't it, to get yourself on the score sheet early on, and unable to tuck it away. You'll be frustrated. 6
minutes left of this first pre-season match. As I mentioned, Coventry coming up at the weekend for Leicester. Here's Dewsbury Hall. Waited and picked the pass for Daley Campbell. Couple of step overs. In the end, he ran into Christian Pedersen. Birmingham just can't clear their lines, though.
Just over-elaborated a little bit there, didn't he?
Just going to have
Daley Campbell there.
Another look at the penalty here, Matt. Keeper guessed the right way. And
yeah, pretty straightforward save, wasn't it? And ultimately, listen, keepers, if they go the right way, more often than not, they'll probably save it, even if it is tucked away. It's got to be right in the corner with power position, isn't it? But yeah, that was far too comfortable for the keeper. A little bit, I wouldn't say casual, but certainly not precise enough from Musgrave.
He tried to chase that one down into the corner. Pedersen, he's had a good one out himself. One of those who will be hoping to line up against Brentford at St Andrews. Going to have another occasion where Birmingham play Coventry at St Andrews, and both teams will stake claim to being the home side next season, like they did in the FA Cup. Although whether or not supporters will be in that stage, we shall see. Let's hope so, as soon as is safely possible. There's Johnson. In truth, since he's come on at half-time, he and Benkovic have not had too much defending to do. One block from Benkovic was important at 1-0, but
yeah,
they haven't constantly been up against Birmingham attackers.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, once or twice in this first half, didn't they threatened with runs in behind, but Leicester defenders, Knight and Sonchu, had the measure of any runs forward. And
that's nice, a lovely touch from Epia. Musquet onto Daley Campbell. Daley Campbell's ball isn't bad either, it misses Epia. Brighton was hurtling towards it. Benkovic wins the header. Crowley's touch was neat. And Birmingham have a throw right in front of their bench. Aitor Karanka's been full of positive noise over there. Again, he's going to be assisted by his brother, and Craig Gardner as well, who had a spell in charge, or in co-caretaker charge at the end of last season, which wasn't very long ago at all. What a pass that is. Absolutely through the air, and Amari Miller couldn't control it in the end.
You counting that as a pass this year? We're giving him the benefit of doubt. He's done well today. Yeah, why not? Why not? Touch couldn't match it though, could it? Unfortunately, but I mean, just like sort of assessing across, all the players that have featured today for Leicester, and it's very largely, if not totally, all positive, isn't it? Really, the penalty miss, okay. Let's not, over deliberate that for Musgrave. A little bit of a loose pass there. Sort it out, DJ. Well done. But pretty straightforward for Leicester, I think. If I was, listen, it's far too early, and I know the array and the selection of players here is not one to really consider. Nice link-up play there with Musgrave and Eppier, but Birmingham, I'd be slightly concerned. They've offered very little, if anything, have they? And I know it's not a full first-team turnout for them at all, so perhaps they could just write this one off as a little bit of a fitness exercise. But Leicester showed a good mentality, good application, good understanding of their roles within the structure and the setup. I think Brendan Rodgers will be very happy with what he's seen.
Birmingham, I mentioned Lee Camp, but of course they lost Scott Hogan, who's back at Villa. He was on loan, and most notably Jude Bellingham, the prodigiously talented youngster who went to Borussia Dortmund. Retired his number, didn't they? Which did lead to some opposition fans and some Birmingham fans questioning whether 17-year-old who played 40-odd games deserved for his number to be retired, but Birmingham took that decision.
Yeah.
And that is the reason that number 22 is not on the team sheet today. They go from Amari Miller, because they're just wearing one, through to however many players are there, and Amari Miller wears 21, Dan Crowley wears 23.
Oh, it's just a referee's got that one wrong. We'll let him off. He's done okay for the majority of the day. But yeah, slightly over the top, isn't it? Reaction and recognition is one thing.
I thought that might be your...
Wow. I'm trying to keep myself on a mild reaction. Otherwise I might end up saying something I shouldn't do. A ball from Dewsbury Hall, that is.
Absolute
I thought it
peach.
got there, yeah.
Brighton couldn't quite get on the end of it. We've seen the array of Kiernan Dewsbury Hall's skills in this second half. The goal, a couple of excellent passes.
I just think, go back to the Bellingham issue with the shirt, without over deliberating it, but for me, I think acknowledge that shirt, acknowledge his contribution at such a tender age, and use it as inspiration. But anyway,
a winning start for Brendan Rodgers and Leicester City in this shortened pre-season. A thumbs up as he goes to shake the hand of Aitor Karanka. And Leicester City have beaten Birmingham comfortably. Mark Albrighton with the second, charging down a goalkeeper's clearance. And the first superbly struck home by Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, who can be very happy with his 45-minute workout. A late penalty miss, the only block really for Leicester, and a very comfortable afternoon in the West Midlands. Plenty of players getting a good workout, and just as importantly, Leicester City coming out on top. Full-time score, Birmingham 0, Leicester City 2. And we can have a look at those two Leicester City strikes here at Birmingham's training ground. It took a while to break the deadlock, Matt Elliott, but in the end was a really good move and an excellent finish.
Yeah, it was a neat play, wasn't it? Bright, enterprising from Tillemans, who got on the set piece quick, got his hand on it and got the move in motion. Little give and go, and he ventured forward quite regularly throughout the game, didn't he? As did Dewsbury Hall, and his time on the pitch, and lovely touch, and even better finish. And rightly so, Leicester getting reward for their pretty much domination of the game. Here's the second goal, which is we talked about the keeper Jaycock, who's I thought did pretty well throughout the game. That instant aside, but Mark Albrighton getting a goal for his against his Aston Villa supporter that he is. Local rivals there in that instance, but everyone must say he did well to earn the penalty. I thought he showed some good glimpses out there, but he'll be very disappointed there with the quality of the penalty kick that he took and far too easily saved. But as you mentioned before, that was the only one blot on the landscape really for Leicester this afternoon, other than maybe lack of creativity. They're not creating enough gilt-edged chances, but their general play, and I say, the intensity of the game, their application was spot on.
Well, plenty of youngsters getting some notable minutes in the first team, and Leicester are off to a winning start. They roll on to their next pre-season friendly, which is on Saturday. But until then, they can bask, if you like, in the glory of victory. Full-time score here at Birmingham City's training ground was Birmingham City 0, Leicester City 2.
Oh, hello. What's going on?
Not much. Just waiting for the football to get back to normal. How about you?
Yeah, me too. Really missing you guys. Could really do with a break though.
So when are you coming to see me?
Hopefully soon, but there's some work I've got to do first. So Vardy.
สวัสดีครับบาย
biết Sài Gòn.
We are an instinct that ignites action. We are a journey, taking one step more. And we are the heart that beats as one. We are proud to be more. De Montfort University, Leicester.
Welcome back to pre-season 2020 here on LCFC TV. After a convincing 2-0 win for Leicester City away at Birmingham City's training ground this afternoon, Jerry Taggart joins me, Dan Bates now, for some analysis after the game. And Jerry, really, it was as convincing a win as you're likely to see, and very much a pre-season feel to it, wasn't there?
Yeah, there obviously wasn't the tempo that you would expect from a proper competitive game of football. But I think, you know, when you're looking back at the game, what Brendan Rodgers first and foremost was probably trying to get out was the shape, the style of play that he wants to see. And I think we're pretty much seeing that from start to finish. You know, they controlled the game, Leicester possession-wise for large parts, which will be pleasing to him. Obviously, the goals are also pleasing. They always bring confidence to the team, but you know, in these early stages, I think it's important that you're just trying to get the way you want to play across to the players, and they go out then and try and replicate what you do on the training pitch. So I think in that regards, it's job done.
Yeah, and it was a win on debut for the maroon kit as well for Leicester City. Both the maroon and the away white have now been launched. Apologies for the technical difficulties with the competition earlier. That is now up and running. So all you need to do for a chance to win one of these two shirts signed by Jamie Vardy is answer this simple question. And it is: Wilfred Ndidi scored Leicester City's first away goal last season wearing what colour kit? So what colour were Leicester wearing that day when Wilfred Ndidi scored their first away goal? All you need to do is email your answer to competition@lcfc.co.uk. You can do that by midday tomorrow. So you've got all afternoon and evening to think about your answer there and get your answer into competition@lcfc.co.uk. Next up as well, on Saturday, you can watch us on pre-season 2020 as the Foxes play Sheffield Wednesday. It's another behind closed doors game there. You can tune in from 11:30 on Saturday morning. Jerry, do you think that Brendan will have looked at anything today? Obviously, the goal scorers, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall and Mark Albrighton, both came off the bench during that second half.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, again, you know, normally the first game in pre-season is all about, you know, getting minutes in your legs and getting used to the shape of the shape that you want to play come, you know, the season proper. But because it's all been condensed into 3 or 4 short weeks, then, you know, there's no time for Brendan just, you know, ease up on things. He'll be looking at every aspect of what happens today. He'll look at the game. He'll have it rerun. He'll analyse it, and he'll be giving pointers out. I thought, you know, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall is somebody that we've seen play for the first team this season. I think it was in one of the FA Cup
Brentford,
games. Yeah. And so he's had an almost immediate impact coming off the bench. So that's a major plus for Brendan. You know, and he looks as if, again, he looks like a young player. You know, he could step up and make his mark in the first team. So things like that would be really, really pleasing for Brendan.
Yeah, we can stick on Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall because he went away to Blackpool on loan towards the end of last season after that debut that you mentioned away at Brentford and was very impressive at Blackpool. I know the fans were very, very pleased to see him there and maybe would want to see him again, I don't know. But he clearly has got the talent, and we saw with that finish there, it was an emphatic finish, wasn't it? First touch with his right foot and then with his left.
No, absolutely, and I think, you know, when you're in those key areas of the pitch, you've got to make your mind up very quickly because, you know, the obvious scenario for the defensive team is to try and get out and block that pass from Tielemans to Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, and then you're working on Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall's first touch, and then after that it's all about going out to close the ball down. But it's a good first touch, sets up the shot on his left foot. He makes no mistake, does he? He absolutely rifles at home, giving the keeper no chance whatsoever.
Who else were you impressed with today? We saw a lot of run-outs for the players that were in the development squad last season. We also saw some good run-outs for some of the first-team players as well.
Yeah, I thought Yuri Tielemans, I thought had a decent game. I thought he stood out, you know, and in a game with that you wouldn't expect players to stand out. But I thought, you know, he was making forward runs. His link-up play was good. He was always probing. He's passed the ball to Dewsbury-Hall for his finish. So I thought he had a decent game. Mark Albrighton again, coming on, setting the standards, setting the tempo of the game. You go back to young players, it's really hard to judge when you're playing against a team that, you know, didn't really have a shot, didn't really cause us any problems, did they? Let's face it. So you would say that most of the young lads, on the face of it, had a pretty comfortable afternoon themselves. So even though, as I said, no one really stood out, that's a good sign, because what it didn't mean was that they weren't being picked apart by the opposition. And it's, you know, they're a decent championship side, Birmingham.
Sorry, Jerry.
No, I was just going to say, so it's thumbs up all round. You know, it's a job well done. Young lads come in, yes, not too many of them say stood head and shoulders above the likes of, you know, an Albrighton, who you're always looking to, and Tielemans in the first half, but they played their part in keeping the game nice and simple, doing what was expected of them, You could see that. And just keeping the game flowing.
And it was Yuri Tielemans that was instrumental in that Kiernan Dewsbury Hall goal, as you mentioned there, neat play on the left-hand side.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, you just see it here. You know, he takes the free kick, he makes a forward run, finds a space, and then that's a lovely little ball. You know, he's almost played that blind. But someone like Yuri can see, he might only be able to see the socks of Kiernan Dewsbury Hall or the boots, but he knows they're maroon socks. Can I get a quick pass off? And obviously he does the rest. And
then this second goal as well, the question marks obviously on the goalkeeper and the defender there. But Mark Albrighton had to be in a position to be able to put them under pressure.
Yeah, but again, this is what Brendan Rodgers has worked tirelessly on. You know, that full court press in the opposition half of the pitch, and it's works the trait. You know, like they suck Birmingham in, you know, and especially the keeper. They're like thinking he's got time and space on the ball. He'll just play it out to one of his defenders, gets it back. Oh, I'll go to the other defender, and then that press comes in. And that's exactly what Brendan Rodgers works on. And there it just came out in full effect for everyone to see and ended up a fortuitous goal. But Mark Albrighton, as we know, always makes his own luck in those situations, so hats off to him.
A nice moment for a Villa fan as well, in Mark Albrighton. I'm sure he'd rather have done it at St Andrews in front of a packed crowd, but nonetheless it's a goal.
Absolutely. You know, and again, as we've seen the response, you know, he didn't celebrate, but I think underneath him, giving himself a cheeky smile and a pat on the back.
What about the full-backs today? Because we saw James Justin, particularly in that first half, played a lot of balls down the channels, didn't he, for George Hurst, that created a lot of problems.
Yeah, again, you know, when you're a full-back in the modern-day game, you have to be almost a complete footballer because, one, yes, you've got to be able to play those balls round the sides of the full-backs into the space, but two, you're always trying to get up and join in the play. Be creative, making sure that your passing is assured, and also creating chances by whipping in crosses. So, you know, the role of a fullback in the modern game has changed over the years. So you almost have to become a complete footballer. James Justin, again, showed that quality on that right-hand side.
And Kanye Leshabella on the left-hand side as well. Obviously, you mentioned the fact that you've seen a lot of development squad games. Those ones that you will have done, he'll have been playing midfield, whether it's a number 10 role or a defensive midfield role. Suddenly he's playing left back today.
Yeah,
but he didn't look out of place, did he?
Again, he coped admirably, you know, and he did what he had to do. Yes, he's a right-footed, and you'd seen him coming in onto his right foot every so often and playing those little balls. But it was all about keeping the game simple, doing the basics well. No one's asking Leshabella to go out and, you know, have an absolute worldie today. Just keep the game flowing, keep possession of the ball. If you've got a chance to make a run in behind, we've seen that a couple of times where he's tried to get in behind as well in the first half, then go for it. But basically, do the basics well. And I think all the young lads did that very, very well indeed.
We don't know when some of the other first-team players will be filtered back into the squads for whatever reasons they might not be in them. But what do you think Brendan Rodgers will be thinking ahead of that game with Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday?
Yeah, well, they're obviously going to have to crank it up. You know, I think it's just a couple of weeks, isn't it now? Just over a couple of weeks away from the beginning of the season. And so, yes, as much as the first game is all about getting the shape right, the experienced players will obviously know how Brendan Rodgers wants to play. For whatever reason they weren't involved today, but come, you know, Saturday and then the following week, then obviously they've got to be as much up to speed as possible. They'll know how Brendan wants to play, as I said, so that probably won't be an issue for the more experienced players. So it's a good run out for the younger lads to try and gain from experience on how Brendan Rodgers likes to play.
I guess by this stage of the year, when it comes to what are we, end of August, usually it would be end of July, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Ahead of the new season. You're probably on pre-season game number 3, maybe even pre-season game number 4.
Yes.
Today we've only seen the first one, so it is less of a gap, obviously, naturally between the two. So these first games almost have to act like a second and third.
Yeah, absolutely, and also Brendan has to then prioritise, you know, who stays in that first team bubble and who goes back to the development squad or, you know, gets left out of the match day 18 come the first game of the season. And so there's big decisions to be made, even though we're watching a training game almost, let's say, and even though it's a pre-season, then big decisions have to be made even after this, moving into Saturday, and then from Saturday moving into the following Saturday against Blackburn. You know, there's some big decisions have to be made on who comes in, who deserves to be brought up from the development squad, and who potentially could be left out of that first game against West Brom of the match day 18 or 19, whatever it is. So big decisions have to be made.
We'll get some reaction from Birmingham very shortly from Brendan Rodgers. But before we do, Jerry, before the game, we spoke about new contracts for Jamie Vardy, for Luke Thomas, for Papi Mendy. Obviously, good news. James Maddison as well has signed a new deal, a new long-term deal at Leicester City this week, which again is fantastic news for the football club.
Absolutely. You know, there's been a lot of speculation about James Maddison, as you know, you would assume, because he's a quality player. So again, for James to put pen to paper for Leicester City, fantastic news. Takes a bit of pressure off Brendan and the club itself, because they've got him. They've got the man they wanted to keep, and you know, they've kept him. And he's a quality player, and he's been missed. There's no doubt about that. You know, at the back end of the season, James Maddison was a big miss to Leicester City. Yeah,
we're just seeing a selection of some of his goals again from last season, and he just adds that little bit of quality, doesn't he? In that, whether it's a number 10 role or number 8 role, as Brendan Rodgers likes to see it, when he picks the ball up in these types of positions, he's so dangerous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, he's got quick feet. He's a clever footballer. Invariably, he knows what he's doing with the ball before the ball comes to him, which again is a talent in itself. And that's an instinctive finish right there for you. And this is what I'm talking about. You know, the guy is a very, very good player, and he's a major, major part of what Brendan Rodgers is trying to do.
Yeah, fantastic scenes there as well with the crowd and the fans. Hopefully, as soon as possible, we can be back to similar scenes like that.
It's the only thing that's missing, but it's probably the biggest thing that's missing in the game is the fans.
And James Maddison, of course, is the type of player that loves to play off the fans, doesn't he? A bit like Jamie Vardy, whether they're the away fans or the home fans, he likes to play off that crowd and the atmosphere. And again, just seeing some of those goals, we talk about Jamie Vardy and the fact he scores different goals. James Maddison, again, quite similar in that sense.
No, absolutely. Obviously, we like to see him over a dead ball situation on a free kick just outside the box, 25 yards out. Then everyone gets excited about James Maddison stepping up, but as we've seen, you know, he's a player that can conjure up something out of almost nothing when he's on form, and that includes his finishing.
Well, this was his free kick, obviously, at Southampton as part of that 9-0. As you said, whenever there's a chance in that sort of area, just outside the box, you back him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You'd back him to hit the target, but, you know, he said himself, he practices that often that, you know, there's going to be a good percentage of those chances going in the back of the net. I'm seeing this is another fantastic goal with his so-called weaker left foot. And probably James would probably be the first to say that he should probably score more goals. But he's had a good return this season. Obviously, as I said, you know, missing for the back end of the season in those crunch games was a massive loss for Leicester, and we're just seeing the reasons why.
Do you think a little bit of is the fact that he is young and he is inexperienced in a way? He's only been in the Premier League now 2 seasons, picked up a couple of injuries this time around. You can almost excuse that from a young player.
Yeah, he's a young lad, and I wouldn't say he's inexperienced as regards to the Premier League. He's had 2 seasons, but as a human being, you mature with age. You know, and with the ecstasy of winning, you know, comes the sadness and of losing games, and that all molds you as a human being the more mature you become. And that's, you know, probably what James will find over the next couple of years, that he'll become more mature the more he plays, the more he wins, the more he loses, and that will mould him into a better all-round player. He's a quality talent, no one can question that.
Very much a different type of midfielder, but we saw Papi Mendy in the first half get a really good run out today against Birmingham City. He, of course, has signed a new deal here as well with Leicester City. Again, another important thing that Leicester have been able to get done this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we talked about it before the game, about, you know, the amount of competitions that Leicester are involved in, and so there's potentially a lot of football to be played this season. You know, I think Papi's biggest issue is trying to, you know, stay fit for a whole season long and be available to Brendan as and when he needs him. We've seen him start games, be on the bench. He's been out injured, you know, on and off since he's been at Leicester. So that's something that he will probably have to work even harder at this season, after training sessions, after games, going away, making sure that everything's working and is in the right order, so to speak.
And we saw yet again with the game today against Birmingham, we spoke about Yuri Tielemans being a forward-type player. They need a player like Papi Mendy behind them, a player like Wilfred Ndidi behind them, and that's exactly what Mendy did today.
Absolutely. I think, when you have your attacking players, and 6, 7 times out of 10, it's going to break down and the opposition are going to get possession. But when you have the confidence of having players like Wilfred Ndidi, Hamza Chowdhury, Papi Mendy sitting in behind you, and their job, not exclusively, but on the majority of occasions, is to try and win the ball back as quickly as possible, then it gives those forward players the confidence to keep probing, keep trying to create, keep being a little bit stylish, a little bit, off the cuff, let's call it, in those attacking areas of the pitch, because they've got that solidity at the back.
As a defender, how much do you love having that type of player play in front of you?
Priceless. Absolutely priceless, because it makes my job easier as a centre-half, because that holding midfielder in front of you then becomes the primary source of stopping any attacks. When that midfield area is non-existent, let's call it, or you don't have that kind of defensive midfielder, that aggressive defensive midfielder, then it just makes your defender's jobs that little bit more difficult. Looking
back at your time here, you had a couple in front of you, really, didn't you? At times, obviously Neil Lennon in there, Robbie Savage. Muzias wasn't afraid to get his foot in.
No, absolutely. And so everybody plays a part when it comes to defending. And again, when you look at the way Brendan sets his team up, Jamie Vardy is the first defender in the team, and so that's why we've seen for long periods of last season why it was very, very difficult for teams to break Leicester down. But everyone plays a role, and if Brendan Rodgers, is going to play an attacking style of football, which, let's face it, for the majority of the season was very, very enjoyable to watch, then you do need those players also in the team to counterbalance that attacking flair.
And we saw, as you referenced yourself, the Brendan Rodgers style of football, in essence, brilliantly for the second goal, the Mark Albrighton goal. There was pressure from the right, there was pressure from the left. Eventually it paid into forcing a mistake from the goalkeeper.
Yeah, it's all about being patient. It's all about knowing when to close down.
Is that where you need your experienced players?
I think so, because it would have been very easy for Leicester to close down, first of all, when the player plays it out to the left centre half. It would have been very easy for to go and close it down then. That would have given the keeper the easier option of clearing it earlier. But then when you get set in your positions, and then the keeper then overplays it again out to the right centre back, then it's time to go and press. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And that is something that Brendan Rodgers will have worked on tirelessly in training. When and where to close down the opposition, sucking them in, to making them feel like they're comfortable, time and space on the ball, and then you hit them.
Yeah, I'm sure Brendan Rodgers is a very happy man. This is him speaking after the 2-0 win at Birmingham.
Brendan, first pre-season match and a win. Looked like a very good workout.
Yeah, but it was excellent. I think, firstly, our young players. I think we've worked with them a lot over these last numbers of months. So you can see when they come in, they understand the style and the method of our play, and yeah, they were very, very good. And of course our players that are regulars have showed a great attitude and great work rate. And now overall it was a perfect exercise for us. 245 minutes. Some of the players getting 60, and yeah, and it's always nice to win, even if it's pre-season.
You've used the words intensity a lot since you've been at Leicester. Were you pleased with that aspect, not just from the first teamers, but also from the young guys who got their chance?
Yeah, it's very important how we play. We need to play an intense game, and when we are at our best, that's normally how we function. So yeah, I was pleased with that. The concentration level to play with that intensity is very, very important. So and I thought all the players showed that today in the performance.
Kiernan Dewsbury Hall came on and scored an excellent goal, but also showed his quality on the ball as well, didn't he?
Yeah. No, he's a very good player. He obviously went on loan last year to Blackpool and scored some goals, so he has that ability from midfield to get in the box and score. So yeah, but I thought all round, a lot of the players, like the things we always talk about, pressing goalkeepers. Mark, you see Mark gets his second goal from that. I think you'll get 3, 4, 5 goals a season from pressing goalkeepers. So yeah, that was good. But But no, all the young players, like I say, Sydney, Tavares in the first half I thought was outstanding. You know, he's got real quality, he's a real talent, and we've now got to bring him up to the level where he's a working talent and have that hunger when he hasn't got the ball. But yeah, a lot of them come in and showed up very well.
And at the other end of the club, I guess some very, very notable new contracts, in particular Jamie Vardy today and James Maddison earlier this week. How vital was it to tie those guys down to long deals? Yeah, well, I'm absolutely delighted. Obviously, Jamie speaks for itself. You know, I'm so happy he's in our changing room as one of the leading strikers in world football. So yeah, it was very important to just extend his deal, and he'll be a big part of what we do over these next few years, as will James Maddison at the other end of his Premier League career, coming into it as a big talent, but now must show that ambition and desire to keep improving. So yeah, for both those boys to continue to work here, obviously, of course, makes me really happy.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers there, Jerry. Understandably very happy with the performance and the victory. He spoke about concentration. He spoke about having the ability to go out there and win the game. So he was pleased with that run out.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you know, the pressure's on, Brendan. There's no two ways about it. Again, we talk about the condensed pre-season, so every game counts. As far as Brendan Rodgers is concerned, even today's game, you heard him say it's always nice to win, even though it's a pre-season friendly, and because goals breeds confidence in players, and it also gives the managers confidence, i.e. in the way and the style of football that they play. You hear him talk about Mark Holt, Brighton's goal, 3, 4, 5 goals a season just by closing down, knowing when to close down. And because he works on that so tirelessly in training, Brendan, to see that come to fruition, even though it's a pre-season game, will be really pleasing for him. Never mind all the other stuff he's trying to, create on a football pitch. Well, the free-flowing football, the timings of runs in behind, crosses into the box, you name it. That will be probably one of the most pleasing sights for him today. I
mean, it might raise a few eyebrows what he said about the 4 or 5 goals a season like that, but it isn't an exaggeration. Even looking back at the games post-lockdown, Jamie Vardy's 100th Premier League goal came from exactly that. It was Harvey Barnes putting the defender under pressure, played it across for Vardy.
Absolutely. And when you've got 3 or 4 players who are who have the same cohesion in that area of the pitch, then you cause all kinds of problems for, defences. And even if a goal doesn't come of it, with that pressing game, that high pressing game, then invariably you will pick that clearance up in the middle of the pitch more often than not, which then sets you back on the front foot, putting pressure on the defence again and yet again. And that's why it's so key in those areas that you have a measured approach to closing down.
Were you impressed with how they were able to press so late into the game? Because it is the first game of pre-season.
Yeah, but again, you hear Brendan, they have to play with an intensity. He wants his teams to play with an intensity. And they have to show that from the off. And yes, we've seen it throughout. But again, if you're going to play a full season trying to replicate, that intensity for 50 games in a season, potentially over 50,
Fingers crossed.
Your fingers crossed. Then, that takes some work on. And so that all begins the minute they walk through the door for the first day of pre-season. And it just carries on the first pre-season game and carries on all the way through until we get the West Brom match. So that's why I'm saying it's very, very important, even in today's game, that the players are all singing off the same hymn sheet.
Yeah, West Brom away, first up. What were your thoughts when you saw that? There's probably one player in particular sprang into your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a nice hunting ground, let's call it, for Jamie Vardy. Yeah, and not an easy time. Probably, most teams would probably prefer the first game of the season to be at home because, there is a lot of nerves surrounding the first game of any season. West Brom, obviously, a newly promoted team. So it'll be a difficult game, but I'm sure one that Brendan will go into feeling fairly confident he can get a decent result out of.
I'm sure the West Brom fans at the Hawthorns will have been slightly pleased they might not have had to deal with Jamie Vardy celebrating in the corner again like he had done for a number of years in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he has been a menace for them, hasn't he? And some of the goals he scored as well have been phenomenal.
I mean, this one in particular in the Great Escape season.
Yeah. And, you know, my mate Gareth McCauley trying to outsmart him. Unfortunately, Jamie, you know, outsmarts him, and that's a great finish. You know, he runs fully 30 yards with the ball and then slots it on with his left foot with this.
And it's your other mate, Johnny Evans, this one, Jerry, who tries to outfox him there.
Absolutely. And again, look at that. Gareth here trying to get back, I think it is, and he just slots that one in.
And there we go, into his favourite corner, I think, probably in the Premier League, that for Jamie Vardy.
You know, the fans never learn, do they? The more stick you give Jamie, the more, you know, deadly he becomes in front of goal. Again, that's a great finish. You know, on the run, tight angle, has to get that connection absolutely spot on. He does, and it's in the back. And obviously, this
best to last. Best to last.
Pick of the bunch. Yeah. Probably one of my favourite goals ever from Jamie Vardy. The technique involved to pull that off is so high, so difficult, and he just makes it look so easy.
Absolutely, yeah, fantastic goal. That hopefully it'll be a happy hunting ground again for Jamie Vardy when the season comes round again. We can take a look at the first couple of games for Leicester City. That first home game being against Burnley. Interesting to point out, Jerry, that will be Burnley's first game because they're due to play Manchester United first weekend. Obviously, that game has been postponed, so that will be Burnley's first game. I guess in a way that'll play into Leicester's hands.
Absolutely, in my opinion. You know, Leicester will have had, as you said, had a game under their belt, hopefully with the right result at the end of 90 minutes, and that sets the Burnley game up nicely. Burnley will not want to come to King Power Stadium the first game of season, Leicester already having a game under their belt.
Absolutely, and then obviously Manchester City, that's their second game of the season. Leicester's third, Man City's second, so again in a similar way, a slight advantage.
A good time, maybe, yeah, you could say it's a good time to play them. You would hope the Man City probably, well, what you're hoping for is that they're not up to speed with their passing game and their free-flowing football that we've seen over the years. But it's one of those ones where you've got to keep your fingers crossed for that. But again, two decent opening fixtures before you go into that Manchester City game. So lots of positives potentially to take out of the two games.
Like you said, feasibly, they could hopefully, touch wood, have 6 points heading into that Man City game.
And then they go into that Man City game full of confidence. Man City, I'm not saying you're praying, but you're sort of slightly hoping that they're not up the full pace as far as their game is concerned. You're going in there with 6 points potentially, full of confidence. Makes it a really good game to go and watch.
Yeah, you can absolutely assume Leicester will be using one of these away kits, of course, in that game at the Etihad Stadium. These are the new two away kits, the maroon away and the white away. You can enter a competition now to win a signed Jamie Vardy shirt, one of these two ones. All you need to do is answer this simple question. Wilfred Ndidi scored Leicester's first away goal last season. What colour were the Foxes wearing that day? All you need to do is email your answer to competition@lcfc.co.uk by midday tomorrow to be in with a chance of winning a Jamie Vardy signed shirt. So, Jerry, really, Leicester and Brendan Rodgers will be very happy with the way their first pre-season game of the summer's gone.
Yeah, I think so. You know, obviously it's still a difficult time for all the football clubs, you know, and this hasn't made it any easier. But I think it was a decent display. We weren't exactly expecting fireworks today. We didn't get fireworks, but some pleasing moments. And the team, as I said, for large parts controlled the game, which will be pleasing for Brendan also. And
that rolls, of course, then on to Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday. You'll be there on co-commentary, won't you? You're looking forward to that one?
I'll be out, and hopefully it won't be too windy. I'm looking forward to every game. I'm expecting the tempo to be lifted again. I'm expecting a bit more of a competitive edge in that one, but we'll have to wait and see. But really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for this afternoon, Jerry Taggart. He'll be there, as I said, on Saturday for the game with Sheffield Wednesday. You can tune in and watch us on pre-season 2020 here on LCFC TV from 11:30. But pre-season game 1 is done and Leicester won 2-0. Thank you very much for watching.